Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk Sunday, stream of consciousness. How's everybody doing today? It's a little bit nicer here in the Northeast. The rain has dissipated. The wind has gone down, fortunately. April showers bring May flowers, right? Miserable day yesterday. Went out for a nice bite, a few beers, watched some Masters play up to the wonderful, if you have never been there, well, if you're not local, you're never going to go there, the Rusty Nail. Had a nice quiet afternoon and after getting some chores done. So we had a nice day. Today is going to be a very quiet day as we get ready for a hectic work week to come. I want to welcome everybody watching on TGI Sports Talk, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Sorry, I should start saying X, right? X, formerly known as Twitter. You can also catch us live on Northeast Streaming Sports on Facebook and YouTube. And Sunday mornings, we're live on their Roku channel. So please get out there and download that. All you got to do is have the Roku app and download that channel. We're also live on Let's Talk Sports YouTube feed this morning. So we're happy to see all of you. Great content on all of those platforms. Special shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Ralph does some great stuff there, Pittsburgh related and national related. Does some stuff that's not even sports related. And it's kind of fun. Especially his Sports Corner show with Smoking Jim Frazier, which is Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on WBVP radio. Ralph will probably pop in here later. If he does, we'll repeat that maybe. And a special thanks to Marty Cordova, former Twins and Indians, Blue Jay, Oriole player, short time with the Red Sox. Great interview. Kicking off our one-on-one series Friday. We'll replay that a few times here. Probably going to replay next Friday because I will not be doing a one-on-one next Friday morning as I've got some oral surgery to get done for a couple. So we'll have an encore probably of that interview in that hour. But then we've got Tim Worley coming up. We've got Brian Holloway, former Patriot. We've got Buddy Biancalana. We've got Randy Lurch, former Major League Baseball player. He just sent me his book. And Randy Lurch is another cautionary tale. And so is Marty's and Todd Stottlemyre and other people we've had on. And we've really enjoyed doing those interviews. And we're looking forward to all of those. And then we've got some others coming up as well. And a special shout out to guys like John Gonzalez and Flo over there at John Gonzalez at the Sports Authorities, Flo at the Bottom Line Sports. Does some great. Listen, John runs one of the best groups on the site. Flo has a great group with the Bottom Line Sports, and he does some podcasting over there as well. So check out their stuff as well. Today, and I'll get to your comments here in Good Mornings in just a second. It's your show. Bring up anything you want. So what say you? We got Masters conversation we can talk about. Looks like a great finish today with Scotty Scheffler looking to win his second in 3 years. Tiger sets a record. And again, the coverage, if you don't watch it online like I do, if you watch the TV coverage, too much Tiger still. But Tiger does set a new record with most cuts without missing a cut. But then he blows up yesterday with an 82. We still got some live and PBA acrimony going on, if you will. We can talk some of that. 8 golfers within 5 shots of the lead today as we go to finish up this great day at Augusta. In the NFL, O.J. Simpson passes away. We can talk a little bit about, I hate to say his legacy. We know what his legacy is. But there's a lot of stuff. Money still owed, how he hid money. Do you think he did it? I do, of course. I do think they framed a guilty man. But the LA police framed a guilty man. Brilliant move there. But there was also a report I read yesterday that this Gambino, former member of the Gambino family, who has not really spoken up. I guess he was interviewed back in 95, but has not really spoken up. He claims OJ hired the Gambino family to kill Nicole specifically. So again, we can get into that. We get into whatever you want. MLB injuries continue. Strider out for the year. Injuries all over the place, not just pitchers. Mitsuyama, if I'm saying his name right, arrested. That's Otani's Interpreters, $16.5 million now. $4.5 million was talked about. It's $16.5 million. We'll talk about that. And by the way, the uniforms are awful. Please, somebody's got to do something. I'm tired of watching these uniforms hang off guys as they sweat. Angel Hernandez, why is he still an umpire? Other umpires speak very highly of him. I watch him umpire, and I do not have a clue what he's looking at. We got some teams with hot starts. Yankees continue their hot start. The Royals are hot. The Astros are not. They're probably the most surprising bad team in the league. And then you've got, obviously, we'll talk about our race to the bottom if we get time. Also in the NFL, we still got draft chatter we can talk about. Rashee Rice has pled guilty, I think, or turned himself in. I don't know if he pled guilty. We'll take a quick look at that. Tom Brady coming out of retirement. Nonsense, guys. It's not happening. NBA, the Knicks fighting for the number 2 seed in the East. Not falling to number 4 is very important for the Knicks as they can avoid Boston to the East Finals. We can look at some of that. And we'll have Jim Biringer coming on, I think about 9:30. We'll talk about the NHL playoff picture. The NHL playoff picture, if that's not what I said. The Coyotes probably moving to Utah, it looks like, maybe Team USA, and Joel Quenneville, we can talk a little bit, possibly coming back to the NHL. And in college, we still got the 2 winners we can talk about that we haven't been on since Iowa wrapped up the women's side, and Caitlin Kennedy, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. South Carolina wrapped up the women's side, and Caitlin Kennedy did not cement her legacy in women's college basketball, but her career comes to an end. And the men, you can repeat, something very difficult to do. They can three-peat. And Coach Cal leaving Kentucky to go to Arkansas, and Mark Pope being hired. Lots of stuff to talk about if you want, but we can talk wherever you want. Within reason. Dave Guyette, good morning. Good to see you up there in Amsterdam. Danny Fuller, good morning, up early out in L.A. or California anyway. I think you're in L.A., Danny, specifically. I know Danny is big on all the L.A. teams. Congratulations to him. Happy Sunday to Drew. Good to have you with us, Drew. Rick Sherlock, good morning to you. Lots of Sunday sports, man. There is lots going on right now. Rick, thank you. We had, it's our first interview in a while, and we had a couple of bumps. Marty was really forthcoming, though, and he elaborated a lot on the questions, so we probably didn't get to some questions we would have asked, but that's fine. I want to keep them to an hour and not go over. I've done some of these interviews where guys were just willing to talk for like 2 hours, but we do have some time frames to keep within for the networks we affiliate with. So, but we had a lot of fun with Marty Cardova, and I look forward to a lot of these guys we've got coming up. I mentioned a few, and then there's still other people I'm in communication with, and I know Chris Fgrave is working on some people as well. Kevin Mensch among them. We got hockey players, we got Olympians. I've got wives of ex-players. I really want to talk to Kay Mercer about my hero, Bobby. The son of Veda Pinson, I'm really trying to get in. Veda Pinson, if you don't know who Veda Pinson is, look him up. Belongs in the Hall of Fame. Let's go Masters. I can enjoy the final day without Tiger. You know what, though? Here's the thing, Danny. The reason I put it on my computer and watch the Masters feed itself, I can pick, the groups I want to follow. I can pick the holes I want to follow. And I don't have to watch the broadcast. The CBS broadcast will find a way. Well, Tiger will be off the course, I guess, before they probably even get on the air or close to it. So you won't see that much of it. Too much coverage of Tiger. I get it. We set a record. 24 consecutive Masters without missing a cut. That's very impressive. I can't stress how impressive that is. And I have no problem, showing Tiger. Because Tiger was 1 under after 2 rounds. He was within 6 shots of the lead. He was relevant in this tournament. But he fell apart yesterday with an 82, which is also a record for him, and the worst round he's ever shot at Augusta. So Tiger's record is like Steelers' time winner. I disagree, please. Again, what? Listen, I'm not a fan of the way Tiger's covered. If you don't think making 24 straight cuts at the Masters, and by the way, it's not like he never won. I mean, the man's won 14 major golf tournaments, second only to the great Jack Nicklaus. So we can't just disparage him. I mean, I disparage the coverage. I might disparage the way Tiger approaches life, or has. Maybe he's, gotten better, but I mean, that's really not a fair comparison at all. Tiger Woods is one of the top 5 golfers of all time. Maybe he's second. And as a huge Arnold Palmer fan, that hurts me to say. But, let's not totally gloss over. You know what? You have no idea. No idea. Look at some of the great golfers who did not make the cut this weekend. Dustin Johnson won the tournament not too many years ago. Not even close to making the cut. So if you don't think that's a great record, then you got to go kind of look. Jack Nicklaus missed cuts at the Masters. What do you got here, Dave? The Royals manager is from the Capital District. Is he? I did not know that. Interesting. Let me take a quick look here because I have the managers up here. I like to have them handy. Oh, crap. I'm not sure if I'm going to get what I want here, though. This link is not my best. Matt Quintario, where's he from? He went to Old Dominion. Doesn't say where he's from. It says where he began his professional. I'm sorry, he's from Bethlehem. Excellent. Good catch, Dave. I did not know that one. Danny's agreeing with something I said. It doesn't matter. Just agree with everything I said. Paul Spada. Good morning, Paul. Good to have you with us. Not sure where you're from or who you root for, but I think you might be a first-time commenter, if not viewer, so we appreciate you being here. And hopefully you'll feel free to participate. And listen, we're all over the board on a Sunday morning. It is literally the stream of consciousness. So whatever's on your mind, let us know. You can let us know where you're from and who you root for in the different sports. We're always happy to do that. We got JB for the Back It Up Binge podcast with us this morning. Good morning to you. Chat and a cup of Joe for all. Third one. My doctor would be mad if he knew I was having 3 giant cups of coffee a day or in the morning. Good morning to Paul from Danny. I'm guessing maybe there's some connection there. Danny is, I think, yes, for him, Southern California. My brother, Danny, lived in Temecula for quite a number of years before he moved to Utah. He was in management for Scott's Lawns before he retired. He spent a lot of time in Temecula in the desert there, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is about halfway between San Diego and LA, I think. I could be wrong there. A couple of things. Good point for Drew. We had a couple of MLB players pass away in the recent days. Jerry Grody, gutsy player, by no means one of the best catchers in the history of baseball, but an excellent defensive catcher, and I think maybe the heart and soul of those part of the, at least one of the heart and souls and drivers of those Mets teams in 69, 73. Jerry Grody passed away this past week. It's funny, I'd been chasing Jerry a little bit to appear in an interview in past, when I'd done these in the past. I hadn't reached out to him this time because I'd heard he was sick. But he did pass away, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and hope Jerry rests in peace. He's just a good old boy, and man, he was a gritty ball player. And secondly, Fritz Peterson, really an underrated pitcher with the Yankees in the late 60s, early 70s. Won 20 games 1 year, made an all-star team. Still, I believe, has the best ERA of any pitcher who ever pitched in Yankee Stadium. Games pitched in Yankee Stadium. I believe he still holds that record. So he went on to Cleveland in a controversial trade that actually turned out great for the Yankees. And he made a trade of his own, which made bigger news. And today, probably a blip on the radar when he traded not just wives, but entire families, houses, and dogs with Mike Kekich. He explained it much simpler. He says, if you want to look at this in a simpler way, our wives traded husbands. He said so. And I guess, it was a bittersweet story because, again, and it wasn't really, people make it really kind of, I don't know. So I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it wasn't that salacious, right, as it was necessarily made out to be. It's just two people who fell in love with different people and happened to be their friends. Worked out great for Fritz and his new wife. It did not work out for Mike Kekich and Fritz's former wife, as they never split up or anything. Now, Fritz was a great guy. Wrote a couple of great books. Another guy I'd hoped to get on the show, but by the time I started doing this, he had first he'd overcome prostate cancer. Then he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and he passed away here, I think, at 82 this past week, just a few days ago. Fritz was a character. He's got a couple books out there. One of them was on the Fritz, the Horace Clarke Yankees, which Horace Clarke gets a little bit of a bad rap for being the face of those Yankee teams from 66 to 76. But it's a great book among some others that he has. So check it out. And our heart and prayers go out, our thoughts and prayers go out to Fritz's family and friends as well at this time. So thank you for bringing that up. Drew, I had a little note to talk about that here at some point. Kenny, good morning. Glad you enjoyed the interview. We got more coming. Good question at the end. I like it when the viewers, and we do give you guys a chance to participate in the interviews. Within reason. We can't ask a gazillion questions of whoever our interview subject is, but often you guys will have the questions I've already got lined up, so it helps. And if it's fits again, so if you ask a question that isn't really where we are in the point of the interview, I might hold it for a bit, and then we'll certainly, as we did this past week, open it up for you guys to ask some questions that maybe I did not think to ask or I guess want to ask. Good morning again, Paul. So Boston, so I'm going to assume you're a 100% Boston fan. I can tell you, you're going to hate me. I'm a Patriot and a Yankee fan, and not a bandwagon jumper. Paul, I mentioned I'm going to have Brian Holloway, great offensive lineman with the Patriots, 3-time Pro Bowler. I think he might have made an All-Pro team. Lived in upstate New York here in Stevenstown for a while, which is near the border, I think, with Mass. Lives mostly in Florida now, but we had season tickets through the 80s, so I'm not a bandwagon jumper. Just remember that. I've been a Patriot fan since I was 10 years old, 1970. Did root for OJ a little bit, but only because I was so impressed with the way he played, and we saw a lot of Bills games here in upstate New York. But I was a Patriot fan from the day a friend of mine and his dad and a friend of his took us to a Patriot game in 1970. Hate the Red Sox, though. I'm sorry. The Red Sox quick start is dissipated here a little bit, so we'll see where they're able to recover. But with that pitching staff, I just don't see how they can do it. As well, good to have CA with us. Boston Paul, boom. What's that? I can't make out that. emoji. You guys back and forth with the hellos. Good for that. Let's not forget Tiger made golf what it is. I believe his time is short, so kind of enjoy it while you can. Listen, we all thought Tiger was done in 2019 when he won the Masters out of nowhere. And Tiger has helped make golf. Well, again, I would argue Jack Nicklaus put golf in the mainstream, and Arnie put golf in the mainstream. But Tiger helped take it to a new level. These guys weren't making the money they were making. They were making decent money, but they weren't making the money they're making now before Tiger got on the scene. My only problem with Tiger was always, whether he was in or out of a tournament, all I saw was Tigers, every shot. And you saw a lot of that again this weekend, I think, too, with the broadcast coverage. Go to the Masters. I think it's masters.com. I can share the link if you want. You've got to register with them, but you can watch a whole different bunch of feeds. And it's very, very interesting way to watch it instead of just what the broadcast wants to ram down your throat. My pick is 6 over par. Everybody in my 5-man crew, Zach Johnson, I had to take, you end up taking somebody from the last bucket. I took Zach Johnson, former Masters champion, didn't make the cut. Rest of my players did make the cut, and they're all right around 5 or 6 over par, except for Cameron Young, who is 1 under and technically still in play here with six shots behind. A lot of things, crazy things have happened on the last day of the Masters, so we can talk more about that if you like as well. I know we got some golf fans, more golf fans than we've had in the past. AJ Hinch screws up with the mound visits and has to insert McKinstry at third base. That, you know, I've only seen this that I can remember. I think one time before, Donnie Mattingly did it in L.A. I think it was his first year managing. Lost track of the trips to the mound and had to take out a pitcher he did not want to take out. But AJ Hinch found an interesting way to deal with that. And Detroit's off to a decent start. Hinch, and I like Hinch. I think Hinch is a really good manager. Again, I think he really got caught up in a nonsensical, overrated, and I know Danny's going to disagree with this, but that's fine. Doesn't really matter. Overrated, sign stealing scandal. But I think AJ Hinch is a first-class major league manager for sure. Paul, what do you got here? Yo, first time, Boston live from Wisconsin. Is that right? Live in Wisconsin. Gotcha. I have to insert punctuation sometimes, and believe me, I am not an English major, so I understand the challenges of trying to type a comment in on the run. And you love all Boston sports. Listen, you got some good teams. You got the Bruins going to compete, and by the way, sometime around 9:30, we'll have Jim Biringer come in, so we'll have a little bit of a pause to the stream of consciousness, and we'll focus on the NHL. So get those NHL questions ready. We'll be talking about NHL playoff positioning as we get closer. The NBA's got 1 game left. We can talk about the Knicks as well. But with Jim, we'll talk about playoff positioning in the NHL. A lot of great races going on. And also a little bit about the Coyotes move to Utah and Joel Quenneville, whether a lot of rumors that he may come back to the NHL. And will he be allowed back? So a lot of stuff going on. You got some great teams out there in Boston, though. Save the Red Sox. And I don't consider the New England Patriots a Boston team because they play 20 miles away. As I said, to people who say I root for a Boston team, I do not. I root for a team from Foxborough, Massachusetts. Foxborough is not Boston any more than Amsterdam is Albany. Only you guys in the upstate area of New York will understand that. Dodgers lose, but again, the Dodgers are lucky. This happened to them last year. They won 100 games. They lost every starter in their rotation. They've already lost Miller this year. And of course, Ohtani's not going to pitch at all. Kershaw's not back. Buehler's not back. So they've got reinforcements on the way. They're off to a great start. But this pitching epidemic has got to be tied to me, it's tied to a couple of things. We don't care about mechanics. We don't care about pitching anymore. We care about throwing, right? Throw it as hard as you can for as long as you can, and we're done. So we don't teach proper mechanics. We blow guys' arms out with having them go, 100 miles an hour every time. When I use that as a, not as literally 100 miles an hour, but on the gas pedal, full bore for as long as you can go. We don't teach guys to pitch, and we don't build up arm strength. I'll go down that road again. I know I beat it to death, but we don't build up arm strength from the time they start pitching in the lower minors. The whole idea is to get them to pitch 80, 90 pitches and get them out of there. And your arm strength is not there. And there's different, there's more stress on your arm in in critical situations, bases loaded, nobody out, you're certainly a lot more stress on you and your body, including your arm, than there is when you're pitching with nobody on, And we don't let pitchers pitch in those situations, so that when they do, they end up overtaxing themselves and trying to reach down for something they just don't have because it was never part of their training. But again, a lot of guys speaking up on this rash of injuries, and it's not just, and it's a position players too. One thing I didn't get into with Marty Cordova that I wanted to was the training. Marty Cordova was, a pretty well put together guy in his playing days, and even now he's got quite a regimen to keep himself in shape. But I wanted to talk to him about the training that I feel is not conducive to not getting injured, if that makes any sense, right? Today, we don't have baseball type training. So we do weight training and build the upper body so we can hit the ball harder because we need X velocity. And it's a lot of BS. And we don't train guys to have a strong foundation and be able to survive 162 games in the baseball marathon. That's the problem with Boston, Paulus. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that one's about, Danny. I heard an interview with Johnny Bench, and he was speaking very highly about Grote. He was, definitely one of the best defensive catchers in the game. He wasn't Johnny Bench, but he was, as far as defensive players go, to me, there's Bench and there's Rodriguez, and then there's a bunch of other guys who are really, really good, and Grote falls into that bucket for me. Great defensive player. And finished his career, I believe, Danny Fuller, with the Los Angeles Dodgers, I think. I know he played with the Royals, but I think he played with the Dodgers last. Danny says, facts, the Dodgers have a better listen, the Dodgers have one of the best injury list pitching staffs for sure in all of baseball. And again, one of the reasons I know Dave Roberts gets some grief. Dave Roberts was the manager of the year in my mind. He wins 100 games. I know he flamed out in the playoffs, and I get the disappointment. Dodgers without a World Series victory in a full season. They did win during a 60-game COVID season, which, again, a championship is a championship, but I got to look at it sideways. I'm not giving it an asterisk, I don't think, but I'm going to look at it sideways. Haven't really won a full season championship since 1988, and fans are frustrated. But for Dave Roberts to win 100 games and lose your entire pitching staff for significant periods of time, you lost your starting shortstop in spring training last year. Great job. Paul believes Bench was the best catcher ever. Oh, Fisk was another guy that was, again, he falls into that, again, defensively I'm only talking about, right? If we're talking about overall catchers, again, I've got to go probably Yogi, then Bench, then maybe Pudge, Fisk, and I know it's blasphemy for me, but, Thurman's in the top 10, which is no, I don't think it's a slight, but Thurman's career was too short. Bench was great. Yogi was great though too. The best two catch. See, Danny. See, I love Thurman, but I can't put him ahead of Pudge. Now, as a leader, that's a different story. I can't put him ahead of Yogi. I can put him ahead of Fisk if I want to. Paul. Which will piss you off. Great rivalry, by the way, Fisk and Munson. And And Munson hated Fisk because of the publicity that he got when he came up. Rightfully so. He's a great young player and had a long career. But I can't put Thurman ahead of Yogi. I love Thurman, by the way. I still get a little misty-eyed every August 2nd. But I can't put him ahead of Yogi. I can't put him ahead of... I don't even know if I can put him ahead of Pudge. Maybe that's it. So he's top 10 for sure. Maybe he's top 5. Paul agrees with Danny. Which is interesting that you would agree that Munson's third. Kenny, I thought his answer was awesome. Most of the guys that played years ago, this is talking about Marty Cordova in the interview Friday, would be embarrassed with the batting averages of today. I mean, he jumped right in. I talked about this, and I didn't get a chance because we were nearing the end of the show. You know, a 235 batting average last year is embarrassing. It might have been the year before. Last year might have been a tick up. I'm trying to think because they put the new rules in because that's where I wanted to go. You know, we put all kinds of rules in again to help the pitchers eliminate the shift. Don't hit into the shift. Stop teaching guys to lift the ball. Although Ted Williams did teach that, have a little bit of upswing on your swing, but not the way we do today, where you swing 0-2. Doesn't matter what the situation, and Marty talked about that. If nobody cared about my strikeouts, and I could just swing from my heels at 0-2, and didn't matter the game situation, who was on base where, how many outs, just swing away. You know, he might have hit a lot more home runs too. But we don't try to fix the players. We just put rules in place to artificially change the numbers. So frustrating. I'm mad respect for the Yankees, but hate them. And I feel the same way about the Red Sox, to be quite honest with you. Again, me growing up, it was Jazz, and it was Fisk, and it was Dewey, and even younger than that, Reggie Smith. Some great players came through there. And I love Carl Yastrzemski. I wish he was the Yankees from Long Island. How the Yankees missed out on him is amazing. But you got to have respect. There's teams I don't like, but I show respect where respect is due. And by the way, I'm going to give you a very, since you're a big Boston fan and the first time here, I've talked about things like this on my show before. And I talk about pitching and the way we treat pitchers now. I'm one of the few guys in the world, and I know it worked out in my favor, but this is not not saying this because the Yankees end up winning this game. Back in 2003, I want to say, I don't think Grady Little was wrong for leaving Pedro in the game. He gets paid to get out of that situation. So again, I'm sure Paul is probably going to disagree, and by the way, that's about when the game really started to change because we couldn't count on a pitcher to get out of the 7th inning. Are you kidding me? I'm reading a book now, Randy Lurch's book. You know, guys are throwing. Actually, Lou Pinella's book. I think that I was reading. You know, he had starting pitchers throw 130 innings or 130 pitches in a game. That was in the 90s. To go back 70s, guys are pitching, 360 innings a year, some of them. Paul loves his Pats. I also love my Pats. Paul, I will tell you, I'll repeat my NFL draft analysis for the Patriots. Do not take a quarterback at number 3. Too many of these guys don't work out. If you miss again on a quarterback, drafting that high, you're setting this franchise back another 5 years. Don't do it. Take Marvin Harrison, who's the best there. You've got Jacoby Brissett as a bridge. Take a quarterback later. Take a Michael Penix in the 2nd round if you want to go that high. I don't even feel the need to go that high. I'll take Michael Pratt in the 4th round. Or trade it. I don't want to trade the pick either because I want Marvin Harrison really badly. And we need offensive tackles. So if I want to go the Pratt route, who I love Michael Pratt out of Tulane, not a lot of guys are that up on Michael Pratt. I've seen him play a lot, and I love his moxie. And I think it's going to translate into the NFL. And I can fix, if I'm taking Michael Pratt in the 4th round, I can go wide receiver and offensive line twice. Chris F-Grave, good morning. Steve Avery's 54. Holy Christ. Great, very good career. Didn't have the career I think people thought he might have coming up out of the minor leagues. Just had nasty stuff from the left side. But again, a very good career. But another reason you don't have boys for over 200 innings. Again, why, though? It's not because they can't. It's because they are not trained to do so. Right? Go back and look at the Catfish Hunters, the Gaylord Perrys. Catfish had arm trouble when he was 35 years old. It's just, there's no way these guys shouldn't be. Nolan Ryan with the Rangers, God bless him. I say this all the time. When he was running the Rangers for a short time, he was trying to turn this trend around. Guys in the minors weren't limited to 80 or 90 pitches. They were out there learning how to pitch and how to pitch out of tough situations. Every starting pitcher, you get up around 80, 70, 80 pitches. First time you get in trouble, they're coming to get you. Unless you're, Garrett Cole. New managers seem to be doing well. Kansas City, good point. Milwaukee. Cleveland. Vaught never managed a game anywhere in his life. In Kansas City, these guys at least had some career on the bench. But it is very interesting. Not so much San Francisco, San Diego. San Francisco was one of my picks to surprise this year. And I think they'll be fine. I think San Diego will be fine. They're only 500, game under 500, I think. Am I right there, Drew? I think I am. Where's my standings? I looked at this morning, but again, my 64-year-old mind will not retain things. Sorry, the Padres are 1 game under. The Giants are 3 games under. I was not high on Kansas City, Paul, before the season. If you go back and you watch our MLB preview that I did with Drew, I was high on Detroit. It was not off to a bad start either. I just was not impressed with anything Kansas City did in the offseason. I like Seth Lugo, but he's 34 years old. And if you're going to count on him to be one of your main starters, I didn't think that Seth Lugo's off to a great start. I wasn't terribly impressed with the bullpen moves they made. I mean, decent major league pitchers, but not people that I think would put you over the top. We're only 13, 14, 15 games in some instances into the season. Hell, 17 in some cases, I guess. There's so much baseball to play. I can't get excited. Yeah, it's a nice for the people in Kansas City. You're off to a great start. But I remember the Pirates, who are also off to a great start this year, leading the Central for, half the season and finishing well under 500. So I temper these great starts. Even the Yankees' great start, I temper that a little bit because I still see some issues, right? Glaber's not hitting at all. The defense hasn't been spectacular. Volpe, who's off to a great start offensively, already with 3 errors. He won a Gold Glove last year. Still have some concerns about the pitching. Still have some doubts about Cole coming back. And if he does, being able to pitch and not injure himself further. Again, now it will come to the point if he pitches in June or July, and then he gets hurt and needs the surgery, we lose him for all of next year. So there's still some concerns. Well, I'll tell you, one of the biggest surprises to me of all of the teams in Major League Baseball is the Astros. Off to what, a 2-12? What did I write down here? Well, I guess I didn't write it down, but I believe they're 2-12, right? Oh, 5-11. Where did I get 2-12? Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong division when I wrote that down. But still, 5-11 is a bad start for the Astros and a minus 16 run differential. We'll dive into this. We'll be back, by the way, next Friday. Well, next Friday we will be back at 3 o'clock with the MLB update, which we preempted for the Marty Cordova interview this week. Those interviews, those one-on-one interviews, will be at 9 a.m. Eastern on Fridays. Next one will be the 26th with Tim Worley, former Georgia Bulldog and Pittsburgh Steeler running back. DNA Cubs council jumped ship so they can continue to stink with the Cubbies. Well, he can't continue. If you're talking about the Cubbies continuing to stink, that's one thing. Craig Counsell has equated himself pretty well as a Major League Baseball manager, winning lots of games in a small market with a team that was not investing a whole lot of money to win games up there. I thought you bet on no, not the guy who's I bet on Hideki Matsuyama, not to be confused with whatever Kenny wrote down here. It's funny because all day yesterday I kept seeing him pop up on the screen of the leaderboard. I go, yeah, he's making a move, and I'm like, well, how did he get the frickin' 4 under, 3 under, whatever he was at the time, from 6 over in one round? But it wasn't him. And, these Japanese names look all alike. They all sound like the guy who embezzled the money, or I guess stole the money. No, he didn't even embezzle it. He stole the money from Ohtani. He's arrested, by the way, and he's let out on, what was the bail for this guy? Don't you think he's a flight risk? Where is the Ohtani won't talk about him, by the way. Yeah, I don't have it right in front of me. He was released on bail, and maybe it was $2 million bail. Where did he get the $2 million? I think it was far less than that, actually. I didn't hear the exact number, and I didn't jot it down when I heard it on the news the other night. But you don't think this guy's a flight risk? Hopefully they took his passports and stuff. I do bash the A's. And this is one thing, Drew knows, and any of you who follow the MLB update, one thing I like to do is track the teams with the worst records and the race for the worst record. And potentially, I said we had some teams. Listen, I'm not counting the A's out of this race. The potential to potentially get to 121 losses. The White Sox do lead the way at 2-12. The Marlins aren't far behind at 3-12. And the A's are 6-9. Well, again, the Rockies are 4-11, by the way. Those are my 4 teams that I'd say are in the race for the worst record in baseball. I think they're all still in the race for the worst record in baseball. And I do think there's a possibility that record gets challenged again this year. Typing on the phone does suck, Paul. Typing anywhere for me sucks. At work, I have to read everything 17 times to make sure I didn't miss a word. Because one word can totally change the meaning of anything. I sent something to my boss's boss one night. He texted me late, 8:30 at night, about something important they needed for some information they needed for the next day. And I got it together for him. It wasn't really hard to put together, and got it off to him. And he said, thanks, sorry to bother. And I said, I wanted to say certainly no problem. Oh, certainly not a problem. I forgot one word, not. So I typed one of the highest ranking people in our organization and said, it's certainly a problem. I did quickly type him back. Good thing I noticed what I sent. And he laughed, so he has a good sense of humor. It's overrated on the asterisk situation, but I definitely found guilty by Major League. That's all. The asterisks. It is way overrated. I mean, I'll tell you what. And as a Yankee fan, I say this because Brian Cashman has probably done more crying about this than the Dodgers did. I mean, Joe Kelly went out there and tried to, at least try to take care of things on the field. I can't fix that little distortion in my upper right-hand corner. I apologize. Let me fix this light a little bit. Might help it. Joe Kelly was out there trying to rectify the situation on the field or, retaliate, which is, again, I think these things ought to get handled there. But I think the Dodgers would, if there's a gripe to have, the Dodgers have a bigger gripe than the Yankees have. The Yankees didn't hit. They averaged 2 runs a game, if that, maybe 1.5 runs a game that series, that season. And stealing signs didn't affect that at all. So unless you thought the Yankees were going to shut them out, just shut up. Not you, Danny, but, sign stealing has gone on since baseball was created. Ralph Branca, I say this all the time, was on his deathbed was talking about how the Giants stole the signs when Bobby Thompson hit his historic home run. Get over it. Hide your signs better. Same way in the NFL, college. Is Ohtani the best player you've ever seen, really, Paul? Well, again, I don't know how old you are. Don't want to judge from your profile picture. I don't like to do that. Because look at me, I'm 31 and I look like I'm 64. Oh, wait, I am going to be 64. No, use me as a judge. Anyway, is he the best player you've ever seen? He's one of the best hitters. But a lot of home runs. Batting average is not anything to get excited about. Doesn't play in the field. He's a very good pitcher. But, again, how much are you going to risk your $700 million of putting him back out there in the mound and getting hurt and losing his bat, too? He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. Is he the best player I've ever seen? No. And I'm probably older than you. But Mays was better. Mays was absolutely better. Mickey healthy, who I never got to see healthy, only got to see the end of his career as a kid, which was sad, was better as a young man. Now, they didn't. Babe Ruth, better player. He did pitch, and he did hit. Still holds World Series records. So it's, again, I get it. He's your guy, and you want to pump him up, but he's not the best player I've ever seen. He's a unique talent, and certainly a good for baseball, but he's not the best player I've ever seen, and not a bad player. Again, it depends on, and it's a subjective conversation, right? What makes you the best player? To me, Willie Mays is probably the best. He couldn't pitch, but as far as hitter, fielder, runner of the bases, Willie Mays was the best 5-tool guy ever to play the game. The other thing killing pitchers is trying out too much spin on the balls, which puts tons of stress on your elbow. Yes, spin rates have increased. We all know the spider tack issue from a couple of seasons ago. There are ways to throw effective Major League Baseball pitches, whether it's curveballs, sliders, whatever, without this, torque you got to put on your elbow. It's always a dangerous pitch to throw. And these kids shouldn't be throwing curveballs and sliders until they're about 15 years old, probably anyway. Your arm's got to develop. But you can't do that. Again, if you're not trained in building up your arm strength, you certainly can't try to put that type of spin rate on the ball. Bench defense, yeah. All right, if we're talking about defense, then Bench is better than Yogi, without a doubt. Bench is definitely, I will never argue this. Bench is the best defensive catcher in the history of baseball. There's no doubt about that. I don't know who could make an argument about that. Guys, a reminder, 9:20 it is now, about 9:30 or a little after, we'll have Jim Biringer come on to talk a little NHL. So if you need a bathroom break, you can wait till then. And once we're done with Jim, we'll go back. Any comments I haven't got to, we'll back up to. And we'll continue our stream of consciousness. Jim will spend probably 20 minutes with us, 30 minutes with us. We'll have a good half hour left after that. Kenny talks about the ALS is the wrong way to put that, by the way. Put the comma in there. ALS looks like... sorry, I find it funny, and it's gallows humor, obviously. ALS Yankees. They don't all have ALS. So I want to make it clear. No rumors get started here that Yankees have some epidemic of ALS. He means ALs, Yankees. As we said, typing is difficult at times, especially for us Perth guys. Jeez. Again, they're playing within the rules, so what are you going to do? The rules are you can spend whichever you want. You're going to pay a luxury tax for it. The Yankees have fought hard to stay under that luxury tax the last few years. They're going to be over it this year. And they're definitely going to stay over it if they try to re-sign Soto. But, and we found the team that spends the most money doesn't always win. Yankees are a great example of that, by the way, as are the Dodgers. I mean, the Yankees haven't won a World Series. They won one since 2009, and they've won one in 20 years. I mean, I got on the Dodgers not winning any, and they won in 2020. So, again, it's a World Series. 60-game season, but still a World Series. But before that, 1988. That's not good enough for the Dodgers or the Yankees. I mean, you can't be getting out World Series victory. You can't be, you can't be behind. Oh boy, you can't be behind the Royals and the Giants and the Marlins in World Series victories over 20 years if you're the Dodgers and the Yankees. Manny Sanguian. I'm sorry, Kenny. I'm cracking up. You missed every L in his name somehow. Manny Sanguian. You spelled it phonetically, so I guess you're fine. I know who you're talking about. Manny Sanguian was a really good catcher for the Pirates in the late 60s, early 70s. He'd swing at anything. A ball could bounce in front of home plate, and he'd swing at it. He was a great player. He's a good defensive player. Again, I put him in that bucket behind Bench and Pudge, quite frankly. Because to me, there's those two guys defensively only. And I think that's what you're talking about, Kenny. And Kenny was a catcher in high school and a little beyond. So he knows a little bit about the position. But he doesn't rate with Bench. And I don't think he rates with Pudge. But I'll put him in that group with everybody else, with Grody and Fisk and Munson. Munson, well, again, career-wise, he did not, because tragically his career was cut short. And Dave Guyette's a big Yankee fan, and as I am, and a big Thurman Munson fan. And I have to, he didn't lead Fisk in home runs. And career-wise, he didn't lead him probably in anything, Dave, because unfortunately Thurman only played 10 years before he was tragically killed in a plane accident, as hopefully we all know. And Fisk played like 20 years. So he trailed them. If you're looking at the years they played, look at Thurman won an MVP award. Fisk did not. But Fisk hit more home runs. Fisk probably drove in more runs over that period of time. Fisk was hurt all the time, too. Don't forget. Oh, not all the time. Fisk was hurt a lot early in his career. In fact, after he won the Rookie of the Year, I feel like he played like 50 games a year after that. Paul, you might be able to confirm that for me. And he had a bunch of years where he had injuries, but they were comparable, very comparable players. Fisk is in a Hall of Fame because he played a long time, and Thurman isn't because, similar to Don Mattingly, didn't play long enough, and his greatness, his really great years were from 75 to 77. I'll give you 78, but he was already, his body was so beat up. He was already tailing down. And I do think Thurman deserves Hall of Fame consideration. But, again, I talk also about Hall of Very Good. And I say Thurman belongs in and Donnie Mattingly belongs in compared to some of the other guys that are in. But if I really want to stay true to my own thoughts, and it should be truly only the best of the best, then as much as I love Thurman, he can't be in a Hall of Fame. Now, if we're going to water it down and let the guys in we're letting in, then by all means, Thurman needs to be in the Hall. Thurman, not the strongest arm, but his footwork was great, and he made up for it with quick throws. He was very quick with the throw, and he hurt his arm. Thurman hurt his arm 73-ish. And he started with this sidearm delivery to take the edge off the pain when he threw the ball. And he really threw the ball that way the rest of his career. Sometimes it was underhand, which would lead to the ball tailing. And, he was a great handler of pitchers. And early in his career, he was really good at throwing out runners, and later on, not so much. Because again, he had to partly he had to get rid of the ball so quickly and in such an unorthodox way that it really hurt his defensive numbers. He would have a lot of errors because he threw a lot of balls away. But again, Thurman's a great player. Good morning, Anthony Price. Great to have you with us this morning. How are you? I know you're a Redskins fan. I believe you're an Orioles fan as well. Orioles 8-6. People, I got a guy who works for me who's an Oriole fan. He's like thrown in the towel already. Still the best team in that division. A couple of good examples by Drew Freehan. I saw Drew commented actually about Bill Freehan, very underrated player in the mid to late 60s and the early 70s. He started to lose it. But Freehan was a really good defensive catcher with the Tigers for sure. Jim Sundberg came up with a reputation of not much of a bat and a great defensive player with the Rangers. I think he came up when Billy was managing them, actually. As a really young man, was a key contributor to that team having a great season under Billy, and then later on played with the Royals and was a key figure in their 1985 World Series victory. Jim Sundberg, by the way, is somebody that we will be lining up for an interview in the coming months as well on one-on-one with Keith Engle. Has a candle burned out on Mike Weir? I think the candle burned out on Mike Weir a while ago. Not to bash. Maybe, I don't know. Is he the greatest Canadian golfer of all time, Chris? He won a Masters. Lefties, and again, I like lefties are always interesting, right? You've only got a few that I can even think of, and Mickelson and Bubba, Mike Weir. But Mike Weir, who, while he's had a great career, the only major championship, correct me if I'm wrong, is that Masters win, which is not to be taken lightly. Is the candle burn out on him today in this Masters, or his career has not been. He's old, isn't he? As old as me. Where is he on the leaderboard? Did he make the cut? I don't even know. Mike Weir missed a cut. Is the candle burn out on him? Yes, but you're going to keep coming back. He's going to keep coming back and playing in the Masters. And one of the things I like about the Masters so much, and we'll have Jim Biringer coming in just a few minutes, and we'll jump to some hockey, and then we'll go back to comments. Please post comment. You can post any comment you want during the hockey. I'll only share the ones with Jim that are hockey related, or I think he may want to comment on sports-wise. one of the things I love about the Masters, so many things I do love, is that the ex-champions keep coming back. The Zach Johnsons, the Olazabals, the Freddie Couples. Couples made the cut. Who else am I thinking of right now still playing? There's a couple that, and again, you had guys play well into there. Gary Player, the three ceremonial starters for the last few years, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, Tom Watson, all came back years after. We've seen Freddie Couples in contention for a good part of the tournament in some years. So it's one of the things I like. But as far as Mike Weir, I mean, I think Mike Weir's candle was fading. And I don't mean any disrespect to Mike Weir, a nice career. I think his candle burned out a while ago. Yankees Sox almost made a Williams for DiMaggio swap. Everybody always talks about, how the other would have done. One of them would have done in the other ballpark, right? I know this is talked about how close it ever came. I'm not really sure, Paul. Quite honestly, I know it was talked about in the press a lot. We talk about theoretics. If DiMaggio played with the Red Sox and Williams played with the Yankees, a lot of people think Williams would have hit 800 home runs in Yankee Stadium, and it's quite possible he would have. But hypotheticals are just that. But it's always a fun conversation to have. Who's a better player? They're two of the best players in baseball that, today's generation forgets about. We think about things so close to, where we are in this point in time. We have a time bias. We forget about, by the way, every player in Major League Baseball should be saying a little prayer every night for Babe Ruth. Because without Babe Ruth, there is no guys making gazillion dollars today playing ball. There might not even be baseball today. And the guys like DiMaggio and Williams who played for peanuts, they worked in the offseason. You guys should all, if you don't know the tradition of baseball, and too many players don't, you better go out and learn it. For sure. Oh, interesting. I don't get that from Red Sox fans a lot. He agrees with my take on Grady Little. Should have left Pedro in the game in Game 7, right? In 2003. Paul's all over it with me. Pick the wide receiver, and I'm sure when you say wide receiver, you mean the same wide receiver I do in Marvin Harrison Jr. Agreed. I'd go Knicks later. Knicks you may not get later. That's the only problem there. And I don't know that I'm a huge Bo Knicks fan. I think he'll be all right. I talked this morning on the Big Football Show with Mac and Jack and on Northeast Streaming Sports about this topic. And Mac was in love with Knicks and his accuracy. And it's one thing to throw and be very accurate and complete 73% of your passes, playing against a really defensively challenged Pac-12, all over the place, defensively challenged, and then getting into the NFL and being accurate. We'll see. Again, I have my doubts about Bo Nix. I'd rather see them go, if you're going to go late, wait on Michael Penix. Why, as I said, even later, because the problem is if I get Nix, it's got to be in the second round, and I think he's gone in the second round. I think I would go offensive line, and then go quarterback because there's some good guys there. Spencer Rattler had a great combine, had a really good senior season at South Carolina while the record was disappointing. And all signs point to the fact that he is maturing or has matured from where he was. And I love, as I mentioned before, Michael Pratt. So next to the Pats. I'm talking about boys, Steve Avery, Mark Langston, not physically developed before age 22. Once a boy becomes a man, 200 innings, go for it. Yeah, but the problem is, Chris, and I guess, and we're probably just talking semantics here. My point is, when they're boys, they're not being developed to be able to throw 200 plus innings. We're babying them too much. We don't do arm strength. For instance, it's not just about innings and throwing a lot of innings when you're younger, which you're probably not off base here. But Back in the day, they threw every day. These guys don't throw between starts, hardly at all. Back in the day, they threw every day just to strengthen their arm. They didn't have to go out there and throw a bunch of curveballs and sliders, but you threw for 10 minutes and you built up that arm and you helped break down the adhesions or whatever had built up. Listen, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a pitching coach, but I can clearly see something has changed from the era I grew up watching to now. Catfish Hunter was throwing no perfect games when he was 20 years old. But there's probably something to what you're saying. Situational play was made baseball fun. This new style is taking human effect out of the game. I agree a lot with a lot of this, and Kenny and I are on the same page. I still watch baseball, still love baseball. I love one rule I guess I like, and it could be contributing. We talked about pitching injuries. The pitching clock is something that a lot of people are putting stock in as causing issues and stress on the arm. It should not. But the human effect, as far as, all we don't care about situations, right? I talked about that. It's a topic I wanted to bring up with Marty Cardova and couldn't, and I will with future guests. I got a message here from, he's finishing up something, no worries. Another 5 or 10 minutes for Jim Biringer. And I agree. Situational baseball situational play is what made baseball fun. Probably was trying to say it a different way. Hitting behind runners. We don't move runners up anymore. If you get a guy on first and second or guy on second with nobody out, we don't look to move the guy over. We don't try to hit the ball to the right side. Give up and out for a run here and there. We don't do any of that. We don't bunt. Guys can't even bunt. They don't practice bunting. Home runs, strikeouts, walks. Boring baseball. Run the bases. Watch the Yankees run the bases. I don't remember when I last double steals. I mean, you'll see double steals now because steals are up. I think you'll see this attempted. I'm sure we saw some of it attempted last year because steals are up because we put in rules to artificially increase steals by making the bases bigger, which, by the way, shortens the base pass. Duh. And you can only throw over to first base twice. So once you're thrown over once, if you're thrown over twice, you've got a green light just to take a 50-foot lead, for crying out loud. Not 50 feet, but. Drew wants to talk about Ronel Blanco. Houston, throw a no-hitter in just his 8th major league start. 3.74 ERA in the minors, started in pro ball in 2016. First Major League Baseball game in 2 years, was only 2 years ago. 4.50 ERA. Is now a star with a no-hitter. Some guys just take longer, right? Not sure whether he was a pitcher his entire career when he was drafted. A lot of guys are moved from position to pitcher to positions once they're drafted and once they start playing in minor leagues. But yes, this is one of the great things about baseball. Guys at 30 years old who banged around the minors forever, then with a bunch of different organizations, they suddenly figure it out. They get the right voice in the air. They mature. They think about pitching instead of throwing, and hopefully this is what Ronel Blanco is, and hopefully it'll continue. He's a great story for an Astros team that is off to a horrendous start. And it's a little... you're 60. I wouldn't have guessed that from your profile picture. Welcome to the 60s. I'll be 64 here in a couple months. And loving every minute of it. But I got to get out of bed in the morning. Again, so again, I guess it's semantics, right? I say he's a very gifted athlete. To be able to pitch and hit at the level that he does is unique for sure. Babe Ruth's the only other guy I can think of that you could compare. And Babe, I'll just say, Babe, and it was a different era of baseball, I get it, but Babe was better at both. Babe was one of the top pitchers in baseball, as Ohtani was, but I think he still holds a record for ERA and World Series starts. Again, there's no way anybody's ever going to get me to put anybody over the Babe. And they're a very good comparison, these two, because Ohtani didn't play the field, so we can't give Ruth any negatives for his defensive play because Ohtani doesn't play a position, which is where I might also take points away from him. Make no mistake, he's a tremendous athlete, a tremendous baseball player. But when I put it all together, and I love Babe Ruth, and I love the Mick, and I didn't see the Mick play in his prime. I didn't see Willie Mays really play in his prime because I was just a kid when he started to move past his prime, where he's still a great player, until 71, 72. I never saw a better player than Willie Mays in all facets of the game, except he didn't pitch. Me, the best player seen, probably not player ever. Best play, I get you. So best player you've seen. That's fair. I'll still say Willie. But I would have to put Ohtani right there. Pete Rose, 83 years old. Man, I got to be getting old. Happy birthday, Pete Rose. Bring up Pete Rose, I'll reiterate, Pete Rose has to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, a lot of Pete Rose is already there, just no plaque. And I say put a plaque up with all his warts and all. Suspended for life for betting on baseball. But he's the all-time hit leader. How can he not be in the Hall of Fame? Kenny brought up, have a separate room for these guys, the steroid guys and I don't know. I mean, the Hall of Fame isn't a fault. It's certainly not all of walk on a straight line, that's for sure. We should all bet on the number 83. I'm going to put, I don't know, $4 million on 83 today. On what number though? Where can I get 83? I don't even know if I can pick it in a lottery. You got to add a zero behind it or a zero before it if you want to play a number. The guy for Pittsburgh that was killed was the best. That guy was Roberto Clemente, by the way, and you're right. I don't think he was better than Willie. He didn't have the power Willie had. He was a best outfielder defensively I have ever seen play. It's Roberto Clemente. That's okay. We understand your situation there, Kenny. Sorry. Oh my God. Apologize. There's Scott Kobe here early today. Hey Keith, how are you? I know we're both in a retirement home, but it's Manny saying Ian. Kenny's right down the hall, by the way. You didn't even know he was here, but Kenny's in the same home we are. That's a good one, though, Scotty. Good to have you with us. Welcome, Scott. Scott does some great stuff on Let's Talk Sports. Check out his shows during the week. A lot of, if you're better following Scott, you could do a lot worse. Probably going by your own devices like I do would probably worse. Good morning, Ralph Williams. As I mentioned earlier, Ralph is with RW Media. Does some great stuff there out of Pittsburgh. A lot of local focus on the Pittsburgh sports, obviously, and has a national bent to his show as well. Specifically, you want to check out the Sports Corner, which I do share when I can. And I appeared on a couple of weeks ago with Ralph. That show is from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. He does it with Smoking Jim Frazier on WBVP Radio. in Pittsburgh, and Ralph does share it to the RW Media site as well. So check out Ralph's stuff. Go and like and follow his page as well. Good stuff from Ralph. NFL draft question from Anthony. Do you believe, let me pull up Facebook real quick because I always forget that I tell people to go to my personal page if for some reason I'm not reading their comments because we had a problem. Something else. Okay, go back. Anyway, we're going to have Jim here in a second. So let me get to as many of these questions as I can. NFL draft question. Do you believe it's going to be over 4 quarterbacks drafted in the first round or over 4? I think it's going to be 4 quarterbacks. I don't think we'll get to 6 wide receivers. Oh, in the first round? We're going to have 4 quarterbacks in the top 5. I think it's possible, at least in the top 14. So, yes, there's easily going to be over 4 quarterbacks. I think it's possible because I think right now, I think it's possible Bo Nix has moved back into the first round. So over 4 quarterbacks is a good bet, I think. Wide receivers, I might go under there. Although, because there's a lot of really good wide receivers, teams may not jump early. And some of them are going to go. Roman Ozune will be the first guy to go. He'll go in the top 10 most likely. Harrison will go in the top 10. And there'll be other guys that aren't coming to the top of my mind, but the kid from Florida State. If the Patriots if they do go quarterback first round, which I don't want them to do, as I said, they may go for the kid from the wide receiver from Florida State, whose name is just blanking out on me, in the second round. One of my biggest regrets as a Red Sox fan is not keeping Carlton Fisk and Fred Lynn. Well, that should be one of the Red Sox biggest regrets as well. Fred Lynn had his best years with the Red Sox, and his career, was never as good with the Angels, although it was still really good. And then he kind of floated around the league for a while, but great player. I'm trying to get Freddie Lynn on the show as well. I've got his contact, and we'll be reaching out in May and try to get there. Let me just get to a couple things here real quick. I see Jim Biringer here. We're going to bring Jim in, and we'll go back. As I said before, you guys got a lot of comments up, and I'll come back to these comments once we wrap up with Jim. But we're going to shift our focus to Jim Biringer and the National Hockey League for a few minutes right now. Good morning, Jim Biringer from hockey.com. Any place. Geez, you got so many places you're hooked up.
I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere, man.
You can plug when you're here anything you want. I'm trying to, when Jim tags me, I try to share the stuff that he posts because he posts some great stuff. Some of it just quick updates for a couple of minutes. Some of it full podcasts. So nobody knows more about the NHL and a lot of stuff around the sports world than Jim Biringer. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Glad we could connect here. The playoffs are coming around. Hopefully we can do this more often again.
Well, as we did last year, I think we brought you in nearly every week. Once we get into the playoffs, we'll probably do that, get you in quickly every week and take a look at that stuff. And if you guys have hockey questions, I'm going to scroll down here just so that I don't lose them. We'll certainly get into those. We want to start. Anybody's got Scott, Drew, Paul, you got questions, comments. We'll go back to those once we go back. To just us and my intimate audience. What are your thoughts? What do we got? I'm trying to do the math here. There can't be more than a handful of games left.
There's only like a couple of games left for each team. I believe it's two games for some teams, 3 games for some teams. Everything's supposed to be over Thursday. Stanley Cup playoffs start April 20th, next Saturday. And look, it's wild and it's wacky, these playoff races, right? The Western Conference was finished up Friday night. The Vegas goal after St. Louis lost to Carolina, and then Vegas beat Minnesota, pounded them. The top 8 teams were set. We only know one matchup in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now, and it's in the Central Division, the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche. But home ice is still up for grabs. I mean, if I'm Colorado, I want it. I don't even know if I want it after the shellacking I took by Winnipeg Saturday 7-0. The Dallas Stars are the Central Division champions. I was just getting to that. I was just about to say that Dallas, if they have a good team this year, They've really constructed their team well. And, you look at it, right? And you say, okay, well, they don't rely on Ben and Sagan too much anymore. Sagan is actually healthy. He missed a lot of the season with an injury, but the team, like Seattle last year, when you have a balanced lineup, yes, you have 7 guys with 20 or more goals. You have the best 5-on-5 scoring in the NHL. That leads to success, and that's what you can do, right? And Dallas is good goaltending. Jake Ottinger. We have, they have a good backup in Scott Wedgwood. They have depth. You have Robertson. You have Wyatt Johnson, Joe Pavelski. Stankoven. They have a list of guys that can go on, and the addition of Chris Tanev has made this team really strong. And it really feels like it could be the Dallas Stars' year once again to get back to the Western Conference Final, maybe back to a Stanley Cup Final, something they haven't seen since 2000. Yeah, sorry, Stars fans. I'm blocking the one that the Devils knocked you one in, but that's okay. I don't think you guys mind.
I don't think they mind that much. And we got a great race in the Metropolitan for the last couple of spots.
Yeah.
How do we see that shaking out? The Islanders, I mean, the Devils, unfortunately.
Devils are out of it. Devils are eliminated. They've been eliminated. The Islanders, they need some help, right? They need a lot of help. They got a big point yesterday against the Rangers. That was a big game. That was a fun game to watch. If you didn't check it out yesterday, that was a great game to watch. But here's the thing. The Islanders needed a win there, right? Any way they could get it, because then they can get up to 91. There's still a possibility that they miss, but with Pittsburgh losing in regulation, then I think it's now down to, because Philadelphia won, so that was huge. But Washington, and this is where I've been saying this all year. If you guys haven't followed along or watched or I'll drop all my stuff later on, but this is why the National Hockey League does not need to expand the Stanley Cup playoffs. This last couple of weeks, these have been playing games. Monday, Washington plays Philadelphia. Winner is in, most likely. Loser goes home. That's what you want. Penguins and Islanders play each other down the stretch. Detroit had played Washington. So many playing games right now. It is great to see. And that's why you don't need these extra wildcard teams, because you're telling me Philadelphia or some of these teams deserve to be in the playoffs? No, they don't. Minnesota, St. Louis don't need to be in the playoffs in the Western Conference. Your playing round is the regular season. This is why you play 82 games in a regular season. That's why the regular season is important.
Half the league getting in is far more than enough, by the way.
Right, exactly. 16 teams is plenty. That's plenty, and it's going to stay at 16 teams when they go to 34 teams, right, or however many teams they decide to go to, which is still asinine, but whatever. But if you look at this East race, it's crazy because for a while we thought, okay, it's Detroit, it's Philadelphia. It looks like it's going to be pretty much set. Teams go on losing streaks. Teams go on winning streaks. So it's opened the door up. No one really knew that Pittsburgh would be where they were. And then, look, a win by any kind by the Rangers Monday. They clinched the President's Trophy. They clinched first place in the Metropolitan. As much as I think a lot of people would like to see Islanders-Rangers in the first round, probably not going to happen unless the Rangers lose and Carolina win. It's a possibility. Still could happen. Carolina, very dangerous team. Just put out a article yesterday. I promoted it today. NHLrumors.com. I looked at the NHL trade deadline playoff impacts from the East. Jake Getzel is on there for the Carolina Hurricanes for obvious reasons. The Snake has done everything when he was in Pittsburgh. He's a playoff performer, knows how to get it done. And all the critics out there that said he couldn't play, without Crosby. Oh, yeah, he's just a product of Crosby. Nope, he's elevated that line of Natchez and Aho. He is the real deal. Jake the Snake Getzel is a playoff performer, and the Carolina Hurricanes are one of the teams to beat in the Eastern Conference.
Kenny, I'm not going to get up here. I'm going to put a couple of comments up because they are related to guys or teams making the playoffs and a little bit into the playoffs, but I'll put these up so we can get caught up. Kenny, I'm not going to put up your comment. I'm just not going to incite Jim that way. Scott wants to know if we think the Bruins Lightning will be a 7-gamer. Listen, you can't count out the Lightning. We say it every year. You got to beat them.
Look, man. I mean, look. I think could it go 7? Yeah. I just don't think this is a team like Scott and I talk on a Monday show with the Maniacs, and I always say like that's a team you don't want to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And Boston's history with the Lightning recently has shown that that's a team they don't match up well come the playoffs. And again, I'm going to reference that piece. There's 2 guys in there from the Lightning, Duclair and Dumba, that have really made impacts on this Lightning team. They've given them more energy. This Lightning team is dangerous. Kucherov, you have Point, Stamkos, Hedman, and Vasilevsky's playing the way he's playing. Look out, Boston, a great win against Pittsburgh, but again, I think that's just a matchup. It all depends on matchups. There's teams you match up against well, like Boston matches up against Toronto really well. They don't match up against the Lightning really well. That could be an upset. And look, people have asked me when I've been on Vermont radio they've, do you think changes are coming? And I said, well, if they don't show up in the playoffs and they don't get out of the first round, I could see some significant changes. We know the roster is going to be changing regardless. They won't have both goaltenders next year. They're going to have a number 1 center. There's going to be changes to this roster. The question is, do you make changes in management if there's another first-round failure?
Great point. Rick is welcoming you back, and he says, can the Rangers win at all? Obviously, the Rangers have been here before.
Right. I mean, look, the Eastern Conference is tough. Can they do it? It feels like it. They've been able to come back from all these games, but it's a different beast in the playoffs. Teams know how to lock it down a little bit. And again, it's all about matchup. They'll have one of the easier first-round matchups, but it's still not going to be easy. Say they play Washington. Washington matches up against them really well. They may, Washington can always take this 7 games. They know how to show up in the playoffs. They've split the series this year. It's not like that's going to be a cakewalk. Even Detroit won't be a cakewalk. Say the Islanders slip out of 3rd. Then they got the Islanders. I mean, all the pressure's on the Rangers to win.
Yeah.
And say they get past the first round. Well, who are they going to face? Carolina. That's not a cakewalk either. Carolina is the best team, I think, in the Eastern Conference right now.
Well, their goal differential is one of the best in the league.
Right, and Freddie Anderson's healthy. He's playing well. They play great defense. The question with Carolina has always been, can their offense sustain throughout the playoffs? And I think with the addition of Getzel, it will.
I do think the Rangers get to the final in the Eastern Conference at least, but that's not going to be an easy play. The Panthers are really good. The Bruins have picked it up.
What if the Lightning are there?
Or the Lightning.
I mean, what if the Lightning are there? Again, you don't know. And again, okay, all well and good. You win the President's Trophy. President's Trophy team hasn't won the Stanley Cup. Full season since Detroit in 2008. Shortened season was the Blackhawks, but it don't mean nothing. Look now, and now everybody's putting the conspiracy, everything. Everybody's putting theories together, hypothesis. 94 OJ, all this stuff. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, you got to play on the ice, and it's a different animal come the playoff time. Peter Laviolette's a great coach. He knows how to get teams there in the first round in his first year, but they've never won outside of Carolina. Maybe they did get there. I don't know.
I'm betting on whoever Ohtani's interpreter does. I'm against him, whatever he does.
Yeah, exactly.
Worst gambler since Pete Rose, for crying out loud. How far can the Kings go? They still play good big body hockey. That's Chris.
I think LA's playing well. Look, they've had ebbs and flows to their season, ups and downs. They're starting to play the right way. They got a big win Saturday night that separated themselves a little bit from Vegas so they don't drop out of the wild card. Again, matchups, right? LA has one playoff series win against the Edmonton Oilers. Like, that's because they always used to match up against each other. Either when Gretzky was playing for the Oilers, they would play the Kings. If you go back to like the early 80s, yes, the LA Kings have beaten the Edmonton Oilers a couple of times, but since like the Oilers were good, and even going through the 90s and now, they have one playoff series win. For some reason, they can't get past this team. They're going to play this team in the Stanley Cup playoffs again in the first round. They have the goaltending. They have the team. They're good down the middle. They play physical. But for some reason, And they've played well against the Oilers in the last couple of years in the first round, but it seems like they hit a wall by like game 4 and 5, and they can't sustain playing that 1-3-1 trap. And the Oilers figure a way to pick it apart. And when you have two of the best players on your team, it's tough. I like LA. They've played really well. I like the way Quentin Byfield's come along. I like Arvidsson's back, so that's going to be huge for them. He's healthy. He's a goal scorer. There's a reason they got him. Fiala's playing well. Kopitar. The list goes on. But again, Ken Talbot and Big Save Dave Riddick come up with the saves when the Kings need it the most, because that's the reason why LA didn't beat Edmonton last year. You're up 4-1 against Edmonton in game 3. Jack Campbell comes in. Jack Campbell makes a couple of big saves. They tie the game. You get the lead late, and then a squeaker goes through Korpisalo, and you lose in overtime, and then that's the series, and Edmonton beats you in 6. So you got to get the saves when it matters.
Well, I'll just put out. We got a couple of comments. Speaking of,
Exactly. He's right. He's right.
Under the bus, which you're well aware of, obviously.
I mean, everybody knew since the day 1 of the season, since the offseason, the Devils needed goaltending. They didn't get it, and here we are. And look, Kaapo Kähkönen's played great. Jake Allen's played great since they got there. Reactionary moves way too late, and you say to yourself, what could have been if you could have done those moves earlier in the year? The way the East is played out, maybe you had a chance. Maybe. Again, injuries, you can't avoid injuries. Jack Hughes has been hurt all year. He had successful shoulder surgery. But you say to yourself, and I mentioned it in the Vegas Golden Knights video, everybody complains about what they do with LTIR, but you should not complain about what their GM is doing, because he figured it out and their team figured it out. You need to ask your GM why he's not doing it and why your management staff, because the Devils had $9.5 million to play with and they didn't do anything. Dougie Hamilton was lost the minute he got hurt. They knew it. I knew it. The whole world knew it. But you didn't get a goalie. The price of goalies went up, and you didn't upgrade the D. If you do something and maybe fire the coach earlier, because we've seen what that can do, you might not be in this position. Again, this falls a lot on the general manager for taking the direction that he did and not filling an area of need that was exposed by the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, and Scott's talking about the Bruins. Are the Bruins extra motivated because of last year's early exit, with their freaking season?
Yeah.
Will it matter?
No, they got to win.
All right.
If they got to win, it comes down to winning. It's like you and I are both the Yankee fans. We follow the Yankees, right? I mean, this starts all well and good. Juan Soto, great. Talk to me in October. Like, this, okay, great. You're killing teams. Fine.
Right.
Show up in the playoffs.
It matters in the playoffs. Agreed.
It matters in the playoffs.
Pretty much every sport we can talk about. Kenny, I will put this one up because the other ones were kind of bashing hockey, but he does credit you with everything he's learned about hockey. He's learned from you. And even though we spelled your name like Juan Biringer, but
yeah, that's all right. I appreciate that. A lot of people have been saying that lately. They've learned a lot from me. So a lot of groups that I've been in, guys are like, oh, wow, we didn't know all this stuff. So, just bringing the content.
You've brought a wealth of knowledge to this. Scott talks about not ever wanting to win the President's Trophy again. It's a detriment.
It is. It really is.
Always talked about. This is Danny answering some of Kenny's knocking of hockey. The best hockey is starting with the best playoff sport. Hey, you know what? I have a hard time. We talked about this a little bit. What the best sport when you get to a game 7. Hockey is certainly one of maybe the best. It may be the best of all Game 7 sports in my mind.
Yeah. Oh, Game 7 is
which we've obviously talked about the past.
It's the best. I mean, the Stanley Cup playoffs are the best. The Game 7, win or go home, overtime is great. Yeah,
Danny Fuller, obviously, I would say, since he worships everything LA is a Kings fan. Lights out on the Lightning, Danny says. Listen, this team needs a wooden stake through the heart before they're dead. You can't never count this team out.
Can never count the Lightning out.
It's amazing they come back.
The problem is it's not Ben and company anymore. Ben and Sagan are not the catalyst for the Dallas Stars anymore. They're passengers. They're not the driving force, and that's the reason why the Stars are doing well. When Ben and Sagan had all the pressure on it, this team couldn't go anywhere. They always needed a kick in the pants. You can go down the list of guys before you name Ben and Sagan in Dallas. They're still crucial pieces, but they don't have to be those guys anymore. When you have Jason Robertson, when you have Rope Hintz, when you have Joe Pavelski, Miro Heiskanen, you have Wyatt Johnson, Stankoven, then you get to Ben, then you get to Sagan, and Ben has really helped Stankoven come up too.
Excellent. Danny is a Kings fan. He just got his Kings tickets for 2024, it looks like. 16 teams don't make the playoffs, so it is a little too much. I don't disagree. NBA, NHL, too many teams already in my mind, and Major League Baseball is trying to go the same way.
It's too many teams. Too many teams. I hate it. I don't like it. Let the model slip out first. Like, you have 32 teams now. Let the salary cap work itself out. Get your infrastructure set. Get it up to 100 million. Get these teams healthy. Get players. Then you're good.
And we'll go Bruins. Paul's a big Boston fan. Myro will get to see next for Dallas, I'm assuming. We'll get into more of this stuff, matchups and whatnot next week with Jim. If Jim's available weekly with the playoffs starting, we'll get him in here at least for a few minutes each Sunday to kind of talk about what's been going on. We still got a couple other things to chat about today. I know you wanted to talk about, there's a big story in Arizona. I would say, is this a totally done deal, by the way, or is there still
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. A lot of people can't comment on it right now because it's still a lot of stuff to do behind the scenes. But Arizona is going to Utah. It's happening. Ryan Smith is buying the franchise. He's paying like $1.2 billion for the Coyotes because there's like a $200 million like relocation fee or whatever it is. And it's gonna get split amongst the rest of the owners in the National Hockey League. And it's interesting because, like, this has been a long time coming, right? Like, this has been a mess since the early 2000s, right? It's been a mess. Ownership's been a problem. Building's been a problem. NHL's owned it. Other guys have tried to own it. Morello comes in. He's like, we're going to keep this team. We're going to do everything. But the problem is there's such a negative stench around this team when it comes to what this team does on the ice, the management, how they miss rent payments, how they don't pay players, how they only get to the cap floor, how they don't spend money, and nobody wants them. And they don't put a winning product on the ice, right? I've been saying this. They never capitalized on the success this team had, right? Okay, early on from like 96, 7 through like the early 2000s, like 01, they made the playoffs like 5 or 6 years. Great. But that was Winnipeg Jets 1.0. Like, they really didn't, outside of like Shane Doan and a couple other guys, that was another team.
Yeah.
When they've tried to draft and develop, they got to the playoffs 4 times, went to the Western Conference Final in 2012. You're supposed to build off of that. They never did, and then you missed the playoffs like 9 straight years. You go to the COVID bubble. Look, it's all well and good that your youth hockey's doing well. You got college hockey there. Austin Matthews is the face of Arizona hockey. There's a lot of good players coming out of the desert. But when you don't have a building, you don't have land, you don't have money to build it, the state doesn't want to pay for it. You've used all options. And the biggest caveat is now the new executive director of the NHLPA, Marty Walsh, has come in and said, hey, Gary, what are we doing? Like, there's finally pressure on the National Hockey League to get an end to this because the players are upset they're playing in a college building. The facility isn't adequate. The locker rooms aren't adequate. This is professional hockey. This isn't minor league hockey. And they're playing in a minor league stadium similar to what the A's are going to go through. And it's embarrassing for the National Hockey League. You're not getting the revenue that you need. And look, it's great the first year, okay, but there was an option for this thing the last 5 years. They don't even know if they're going to win the land auction, all this. Okay, best solution is move the team, relocate the team, and what's going to happen is they're going to get the first crack at expansion when it comes around again. But they have to get the infrastructure set first, like the Minnesota Wild did, right? So the North Stars leave in 93. They were having building issues. There was ownership problems. There was attendance issues. Okay, great. What do? They go to the state legislator and say, hey, this is what we want to build a new building. We want an NHL franchise, but we're also going to use it for amateur athletics, amateur athletic association, that whatever the cost was, $100-something billion, whatever it was. But they didn't have to pay all of it back because now you have the World Juniors there. You have Frozen Fours. You're using it for state high school hockey. Like, that's the way you get your ownership set, you get your management set, you get your building set. Now the team's not living year to year without a building. The players don't know what's going on. And now they're going to renovate the building where the Jazz play in Utah to get some hockey there. It's just a win-win for everybody because it's just an embarrassing situation. It was the never-ending story that was the Arizona Coyotes, and look, it's just a bad thing. And one other point on this. Look, you feel bad for the franchise. You feel bad for the diehard fans. It's never great to lose a franchise. Just ask Expos fans, diehard Thrasher. Like, it's tough to lose our franchise, but when towns, cities don't want to pay and use taxpayer money to build you, that's all you need to know.
I think Utah will support this team, too, if they make a minimal effort to make it.
Right. Right, exactly. Well. And look, it'll benefit the Coyotes if they have an expansion draft because we know what the expansion draft rules are like. Now, it's not like the old expansion where you just get crap players. You're going to get some good players. You're going to field a good hockey team, and they want to go back. Look, as much as they talk about Atlanta and Houston, when this happens, which it's gonna be announced next week, the Arizona Coyotes' final home game is April 17th, Wednesday night. And that's the last game you're ever going to see the Arizona Coyotes in the desert. And look, the owner's keeping all the stuff to the AHL, the name, all that stuff. So we don't know what the team name is yet for a Utah team, but they're going to have to figure it out quick because the NHL draft's coming up in Vegas in June. But the thing is now Arizona jumps to the number one because they want to go there. It's an untapped market. I say it all the time. Arizona, if you could put a winning franchise on the ice, is Tampa West. Great weather, golf courses, pools. Like, this is why players want to go to Tampa, right? Good weather, all that stuff. You put a winning franchise there, maybe Arizona does something.
Well, it remains to be seen. They deserve...
There's good hockey there. Like, there's good youth hockey there. There's good hockey. Like, there's a lot of good players that come out of Arizona, but again, the NHL, and it's kind of ironic, this one. So I was looking this up, fun stat, right? How about Shane Doan played 1 year with the Winnipeg Jets 1.0, moves to Arizona. His son's going to play like 11 or 13 games, something like that, for the Arizona Coyotes, going to move to Utah.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I agree with Danny's... They've supported the Jazz through thick and thin up there, so I think
they want hockey up there. They want hockey up there. They support it. They have good. There's good minor hockey there. Yeah. They'll support it. That's a good hockey town for everybody. Plus the winners, like that's the hockey market.
I wanted to ask about. I saw a story this week that I mentioned to you last night about Joel Quenneville, who we know not officially banned from the NHL that I'm aware of, but. Had to resign and somewhat in disgrace, if you will. I don't know. Gosh, what was it? 3 years ago now? It was 2 years. I'm not even sure. A lot of talk about him possibly getting behind the bench in the NHL again. Is this possible, or is there going to be this unofficial blackballing of Joel Quenneville because of
I don't think he's coming back. As much as I heard the Cam and Strick podcast, Andy Strickland did a great job with Joel Quenneville because he knows him going back to his St. Louis days. And I mean, if it's true what he is saying on the podcast about how in this meeting it was never mentioned to him, and the first time he heard it, that it was Kyle Beach was when he was down in Florida and all the accusations came out. I mean, but still. It's an institutional failure from the start. There's a reason why he hasn't come back yet. He was at some meetings earlier in the year. They said no. And I think with the Mike Babcock situation that happened earlier in the year, there was a reason why he didn't come back yet. Yeah. Now, his name may get thrown around this summer, but he still has to be reinstated by the league. He has yet to be reinstated by the league. Same with Stan Bowman. I think they're just working on themselves. I just don't think it's going to happen. As much as, maybe, because apparently they've had conversations and everything like that. But it doesn't excuse the fact that happened while he was the head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. And I think there's too much of a stench and too much of a negative PR around him to bring him into any team, because everybody's going to want to talk about that. And I don't think you need that as a franchise right now. There's too many good young coaches out there too. We're tired of recycling these old guys, same guys around, right? I feel bad for him. He never got a fair share in Florida. That team was really good. That is his team. Paul Maurice has done a great job with the Florida Panthers. Andrew Burnett. There's a reason why Andrew Burnett's coaching in Nashville right now and not with the New Jersey Devils. But again, that's a different discussion for a different day. He's a good head coach. Unfortunately, I think this is going to knock him out of the league. Look, we know what it did to Joe Paterno. I think he's done. I just don't see it happening. I just think there's just too much negative impact on it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. You wanted to talk about the Hart Trophy a little bit, I think, today, which we can get into, unless you got to run. And, guys, we'll go a little long today since we've got Jim on and going a little longer than we might normally have. But if you want to get into the Hart Trophy, we can certainly have that discussion. What do you?
Yeah, just wrapping up with the regular season coming to an end. I want to give some Rangers love out there, as much as I'm not a Rangers fan, but as a hockey analyst, I think you got it. I know that the Professional Hockey Writers Association have Nikita Kucherov and Artemi Panarin listed as the same position, which makes no sense, but okay. But if I had a vote on the Hart Trophy, which I do, I would have my top three would be McKinnon, Kucherov, and Panarin. I don't understand why he's not getting more love than he is. He plays in New York. He plays for an Original Six franchise. He's going to have the second most points in NHL and Rangers history behind Jaromir Jagr. He's closing in on a 50-goal season. Like that, and he's lifted everybody on his line. He's made Alexis Lafreniere a player that everybody expected him to be when he was drafted number 1 overall. Like, that's the definition of most valuable player. Unfortunately, when Matthews hits 70, it's pretty much McKinnon, Kucherov, and Matthews. Panarin should be in there. And the Hart Trophy and some of these awards in the National Hockey League have to go to Heisman style. We need at least 5 spaces in some of these awards because you can't just put 3 players there anymore. To me, I think Panarin needs to be in a conversation. I think he needs to be a finalist. I know Nikita Kucherov's probably going to win this thing because he's 50 points ahead of the next guy on his team. McKinnon's having a great season too, but I think, to me, Panarin needs to be in there. This guy continues to show up and score big goals for this team, even though the Rangers have been in first place all year, they would not be there if he's not on this team.
I feel like Panarin gets a bad rap, especially in New York specifically sometimes, because when he first came to this team, he didn't necessarily produce right away and struggled a bit, again, relatively speaking, right? And I think there are still people who hold that against him, and he's been a really good hockey player pretty much his entire time here, except maybe struggling a little bit at the beginning. And maybe I'm misremembering that, and maybe I'm off base, but I thought
he's been to me. I remember him being excellent. Maybe he got off to a couple of slow starts with the Rangers since he's been there, but he's been excellent since he's been with the New York Rangers. I mean, that was a great signing by the Rangers.
I agree. I'm just, when I say it relatively, compared to expectations, right?
All right. So in the shortened, so with in the first season with the Rangers, which was the COVID season, 2019-20, right? 95 points. In 42 games, he had 58 points in a shortened season.
That's pretty good.
21-22, 96 points. Last year, 92 points. This year, 118 points. He's produced for the New York Rangers, and he's setting highs in assists. He probably won't set a career high in assists, but he set a career high in goals this year for the Rangers. The problem is, I think everybody knows that regular season stats are great, but if you don't show up in the playoffs, it doesn't matter.
That might be what I'm thinking about was playoff.
Because he's been a great regular season performer, but he has showed up in the playoffs. Like when he took Columbus deep in the second round, he was their major player. Like he can show up. I mean, this dude is is a good player.
Well, when they have playoff failures like the Rangers have had a few times in recent years, I mean, the face of the franchise is going to get blamed no matter what he does. So.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, I
agree.
To me, I think he's one of those guys that just shows up when it matters. And again, to me, because Austin Matthews plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he's getting all this love, right? His original 6 franchise, 70 goals, all this stuff. Matthews or McDavid on the Rangers, it's New York. It's one of the biggest hockey markets in the world. How is that not happening? I don't know.
I'll put this up because I can't answer it for you, obviously, later on. So if we don't like expansion of playoffs, why would we want expansion in playoff awards?
Player award. Well, I'm just saying because, look, I don't want expanded playoffs because it's stupid and it just waters down the playoffs and it waters down your regular season because 82 games matter. But when a season you have like this, when there's so many talented players in the league putting up so many great points and having fantastic seasons, it's hard to just pick 3 guys. That's what I'm saying. Like, because I could go down the Hart Trophy and be like, okay, McKinnon, Kucherov, Panarin, McDavid, Matthews, Crosby. Like, there's so many guys that could be up for that. You go down the defensive award, Yossi. You could have Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, Adam Fox. Like, there's just so many guys that you can list for certain awards that it feels right.
Agreed. And before we wrap it up, Scott's got one question I will throw out there since we're going to start the playoffs next week. Who is the one team that would shock you?
Shock me to get to a Stanley Cup final?
Yeah, I'd say the Islanders myself.
Probably the Islanders. I think the Islanders would be a shocking team in the East for sure. I think the Islanders or whoever comes out of like that second wild card, whoever it is, like one of those teams, because I just don't see them making it. I think I could see every other team like going, like Toronto would be shocking too because you just don't believe in Toronto. I think out west, like if you go out west, you could go out west and say you can make a case for any team out west to make the Stanley Cup final. You could even Nashville, and maybe that's the surprise team. But you could make a case for any team out there that could in the Western Conference to make the Stanley Cup final.
I agree, and we're gonna see it right before us. So what I'll do, Jim, we'll invite you in I'll send you the invite every week if you can make it.
Yeah.
I get it. Even if we spend 10 minutes chatting about what we've seen the last week of the playoffs, that's great. Any news that's come up. We don't have to spend a lot of time, but we'll at least keep people up to date on a weekly basis. And if you can't pop in, you can't. So I appreciate you coming in today. We spent probably more time than we expected to, but I appreciate that. A lot of questions and a lot of information.
A lot of good information today. And, I know this was a long one. We hadn't done it in a while. I know your show normally is off soon, but I figured it was a good day to pop.
We often go a little long because we have latecomers and a lot of comments, and I don't like to leave comments unanswered. So we'll get back into that right now. So I appreciate you coming in, and we'll be seeing you weekly until the playoffs end in August.
Absolutely. If I'm on the road or something, I'll try to do it up from a building or something for the playoffs. I'll probably try to get out to UBS or if the Islanders get in, maybe make a road trip to Carolina or something. But see where I go on the road for the Stanley Cup playoffs because it's going to be a good one. And guys, hey, real quick, can I just give a shout out to the places to just take a look at my stuff?
Absolutely, always.
FullPressHockey.com, check it out. NHLRumors.com, Full Press Hockey Podcast YouTube. Please subscribe, check it out. I'm posting a lot of videos up there now. Obviously, always follow me, Jim Biringer on Twitter, Full Press NHL on Twitter as well. Jersey Jim 33 threads, and all the social media accounts. You can link it all up. Check it, iTunes, Spotify, all the fun jazz stuff. And obviously, big announcement now. Keith and I were talking. You're going to see a lot more of the hockey podcast on TGI Sports Talks page as well.
Yep, we'll share that as often as possible. So, Jim, thanks for coming in. Thanks for all that. I mean, if you Google NHL hockey, Jim Biringer is the first 100 things that come up. So he's the man. So I appreciate it again, Jim. We'll talk to you next week, hopefully. Absolutely, buddy. Always a pleasure. And if you guys need updates, just follow along. You know where to find me. Excellent. Thanks, Jim. Have a great Sunday. All right, you too. Bye. Bye-bye. All right, the great Jim Biringer from, again, FullPressHockey.com, Let's Talk Sports, everywhere you heard him talk about. Check out his stuff. We'll get it shared on Let's Talk or on TGI Sports Talk as well. If he tags me and if he tags me, I do remember to do it. So we'll make sure we do it. Sometimes it'll go to my personal page, but I'll try to make sure I get it to both. And we'll go a little long today because we got to go back to get to some comments. I'll check out some of the ones that applied to the hockey before I go on. Drew, I do see your new one, but I'm going to go back to the older ones first. Real quick here. What do we got here? Thanks, Jim. Jim, new shirt for next week. This is about it's about darts, I'm guessing. Thanks. CA gives us our weekly dart. Kenny talks about our dart update. You can't have 10 wives, even if you're a Mormon, unless you're doing it legally. And not everybody in Utah is a Mormon, by the way. My brother lives in Utah. My boss lives in Utah. They're not Mormons. So there's a lot of non-Mormons in Utah as well. Danny's full of crap. Not sure what he's talking about. Jazz is all they got, and that's why they want hockey. They'll support it. Believe me, I know the people that I know there are dying for major sports. So let me just put up before I go back to the top and where I left off and figure it out. Here's a betting question for you. Do you think Caitlin Clark hits 130 plus threes in this WNBA season? Yeah, that's a good one, Scott. I'll have to kind of think about that because I got to think about how many games they play. Off the top of my head, I'll say yes because I think that's going to be a big part of her game, right? So let's see where I left off here. I got it way back up. I want to get to the things that you guys were talking about. And like I said, we'd normally be off in 3 minutes, but we're going to keep going. So if you have more comments, we'll because I see I missed stuff about. There we go. There's the ALS, so I know I got there somewhere. Thurman, well, that was not it. Anthony Price, we talked about that. Freehand, where was I? I thought I was where I was. Oh, boy. Maybe I went past all this. Both of the retirement moms sank in. Oh, there's some funny stuff there. All right, I think I'm close here. That's where I left off. Paula was yelling at Kenny for the spelling when she's sitting right next to me. Maybe just dictate to her, Kenny. In the mid to late 70s, it was not uncommon to see catchers playing 140 games or so behind the plate. Great point, Scott. Again, we don't see that often this year, these days as well. I mean, again, the games were different. The players were different. They make so much money now that I think teams want to protect them, and in protecting them, especially when it comes to pitchers, I think they end up hurting them. Andy Etchebarren was a very gritty catcher. That's a good one. Kenny's a lifelong Oriole fan. He had no bat at all, though, Andy Etchebarren. But defensively, Andy Etchebarren was, again, I'm going to put him in the bucket behind. I can't compare him to Bench and Pudge. Meaning, when I say Pudge, I mean Rodriguez, not Fisk. Freddie Couples, we're talking about the Masters here, and I said he's made cuts, he's competed even at an advanced age. He's been very competitive in the Masters as he's been invited back. He's been one of the cash players in the history of the game. Huge difference performing for prize money versus your own money on the line. That's why I like some. Listen, you may remember the skins games were really popular when they started in the 80s, and I would have been much more interested in watching them play. And they still play some of them today, but I'd be much more interested if they were playing for their own money. So, and they do have these little side bets during practice rounds and whatnot. So I'd like to see some of that live. So Paul Spada talking about Penix possibly as a Patriot pick. Not in the first round, definitely, obviously. If Penix were still there in the third round for some reason, which, listen, you can find Penix ranked anywhere from 13 to third round. If he's there in the third round, I'd probably grab the guy. I worry about his history, injury history. I worry a little bit about how much of his success was, throwing the ball up and having 2 and 3 great wide receivers just go up and catch the ball. But he was a winner. He won in Indiana. before he transferred. Scott says in his mind, we're back here. They'll go Brissett. I think no matter what they do, quarterback wise, you're going to see Jacoby to Brissett early. I don't think, unless if they do draft a quarterback early, which is probably more likely than not, right? They'll probably use the 3 spot for a quarterback, as much as I don't want them to. I would like them not to rush the guy and unless he really stands out above Brissett. Mac Jones stood out above Cam Newton, but again, I don't think in the sense that, Dan Marino, not the Dan Marino type, stand out in his rookie year. And I'm trying to think of some other guys. Look at Rodgers had to sit. A lot of guys have to sit. Some guys are ready to play, some aren't. But Scott's not even talking about that as I go through the rest of this. He's not talking about drafting a quarterback. He's talking about then they throw a boatload of money at Dak next X. This will bring up a bunch of comments, which I probably won't get to till a little bit as we go through the rest of this. But Dak next is $125 million. They do have a ton of cap room. They had a ton this year. Kenny's going to tell me how bad Dak is. I'll take my chances on Dak. I really would. Because again, here's the thing. If you had your choice right now between Dak Prescott and a crap shoot roll on Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jalen, anybody you want to mention, none of these guys are sure things because nobody is. Ryan Leaf was a sure thing. Trey Lance was a sure thing. How many guys don't make it in these first few rounds? There's more, and they just aren't coming to my head. I would hazard to guess there's as many busts of quarterbacks taken in the top 5 or 10 as there are guys that make it. Mitch Trubisky, Daniel Jones. You set your franchise back years. I would take Dak over any one of those guys because I know at least I'm going to win regular season games. I'm going to get to the playoffs. Now it's my job to coach that guy up so he can win. And I don't know that Dak's failures in the playoffs aren't just because of the people that are playing around him. Again, he didn't play any defense that I saw in that Green Bay loss. Now, his history hasn't been good. There's been times I've been tough on Dak. But Dak is definitely not a terrible NFL quarterback when you consider some of the other situations. Rattler, I think I brought up, Paul, probably before I got to this comment. I like Rattler. Look, he's a very talented guy. I talked before, and I know some of you guys are new, and I talked a lot about a show called QB1, which was on Netflix for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And it followed these guys through their senior years of high school. And, colleges recruiting them, their decisions of where to go. Spencer Rattler, a lot of great quarters. Sam Hartman, Justin Fields was one of them. Richardson from the Colts was one of them. Ton of really good quarterbacks. Some you wouldn't have heard of, some you did. Spencer Rattler was one of those guys. He didn't even complete his senior year in high school because he was very immature at the time, and you could tell. That immaturity followed him to Oklahoma, and I think to South Carolina his first season there. I've talked to some people that are know the South Carolina program better than I do, and the word is that he has matured. He had a great combine, and he improved his draft status. So he would probably be a guy that I would consider. I probably still, if I had my choices between, let's just say Penix and Knicks are all gone, and I'm not taking either one of those guys, Michael Pratt would be my pick over Shane Rattler right now, just because of the maturity level and whatnot. Now, Pratt's had some injury issues as well. I do think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. Back in the day, more than 5 innings was a quality start, which now it is. now, I think you mean wasn't a quality start, Ralph. Now, heck, I think it's 6 innings. Yeah, and by the way, guys weren't going 5 innings. If you went 5 innings, you probably gave up 9 runs. Yeah, but now you pitch 6 innings and give up no more than 4 runs and whatever. It's a quality start. Well, do you know what that works out to? Drew probably knows better than I do what the metrics are for that. It's another BS freaking, because it doesn't take into account, the runs you might have left sitting on base that got let in by relievers. Kenny's a believer in lowering the mound as one of the major reasons why pitchers are getting hurt. That's a possibility, Kenny. I guess I'd have to talk to somebody who knows more about the human body. But again, they lowered the mound in 1968. So these injuries, they didn't just lower the mound this year and last year. They lowered the mound in 1968. Again, one of the many rules changes or changes to the game that was to benefit pitcher or hitters and not pitchers. But that's entirely possible. But, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, Bob Gibson hurt his arm shortly after that. But we had guys pitching. And again, I have to say this too. I think a lot of guys then probably pitched through arm injuries. So I understand that. And now they don't let them do it because of the money. So again, there's a toughness factor because there's a difference between injury and being hurt. Now, I'm not saying, Spencer Strider could go out and pitch. I'm not saying that. But I know from reading guys' autobiographies from the 60s and 70s, these guys probably pitched through torn rotator cuffs. They pitched through torn tendons in their elbows. No one thinks I look 60. I was high 50s in that picture. People tell me, Paul, that I look good for 80. Kidding. Yes, Ralph, and I know we're just getting back that it's a little bit later, but I'm sure Ralph's well acquainted being in Pittsburgh with Roberto Clemente. What a great player. Again, comparing him to Ohtani, better all around. Again, Roberto might be second all around in my mind to Mays. Mays, Aaron, and Clemente, all around players, best guys I ever saw play. Best guys I ever saw play in their prime. Well, close to their prime. Let your wife know before you put the 4-minute on it. What's that? What is that? That's got to be for Ken. I don't know what that one's for. Manny Sanguian was a great catcher. Yes. Not in the class of Johnny Bench and Ivan Rodriguez. Yes. Manny Sanguian was a great and underappreciated catcher, I think, in my mind. Manny, and I don't know if you have any ties, Ralph. I don't even know if you're still here, but if you are, Manny Sanguine's a guy that I've hoped to get on the show a couple during different iterations of my one-on-one interviews, and I'm going to chase him again for sure. Clemens was the best pitcher I ever saw, maybe not the best pitcher ever. Clemens would be up there. Again, before steroids, Roger Clemens was a great pitcher. So we'll throw the steroids thing out. Best pitcher I ever saw, I didn't see Koufax. Catfish was one of the best pitchers I ever saw, but he's a much different pitcher than Clemens. I'm trying to think of other guys. Seaver, and I'm a big Nolan Ryan fan. Regardless of the record, he played on a lot of bad teams. I'll put Clemens up there, but I'm going to say Seaver and Ryan are probably there with him in my mind. Scott's 2 biggest bets this week is Tiger making the cut. Well, I think they hope that was over. That was your bet. So you can't, if you're betting after the fact, I want to know where you're betting because I want to be able to do it. And Xander to make the top 12. Xander's, I think, where is Xander now? I don't know. He's in play, I believe. Played really well. Yesterday moving day. It's always moving day at the Masters on Sunday, and DeChambeau kind of imploded for a little bit. Interesting when he pulled up the signpost yesterday because it was impeding his shot. It's a movable object. You can move it. Can't move bleachers and stuff, but you can move signposts apparently. People get nervous when your bet doesn't hit early and give it time. Anything that's a future bet, right? Definitely. I did bet Hideki Moriyama. Say his name wrong again. Whatever. You know who I mean. He's still +5 today, I believe. So I was patient, and he didn't. I bet him to finish in the top 20, and then I bet him to win. I don't think I'm going to get either of those, but today could happen. Who knows? A lot of things could happen today. Comparisons of baseball back then today is like football today, talking about back when they were wearing leather helmets. Biggest difference is there was more cheating for less money. I'm not sure where you're talking about the cheating, maybe in football. I don't know of any cheating in baseball growing up watching it, and I don't know about the leather helmet era. If they're fixing games, again, I haven't read any great novels about it, let's say. But I have no problem comparing eras and telling you what I think is better. I mean, again, I could compare Ruth and Ohtani because they're very similar in where their strengths are. Both could pitch, both could hit. There's only 2 guys in the history of baseball we can compare that way. I know the game was different. I'm not saying it's better. There are things that are better today, right? Facilities are better. Stadiums are better. But do I think the overall play in baseball is better? I do not. I don't think the game, and again, you can compare the way the game is played. What is better? The game we talked about that is strategic and moving base runners and bubble switches because you didn't have DHs, and that's a game that you totally changed the whole dynamic of the game. It isn't just players, evolving. You've changed the dynamic of the game with some of the rule changes you put in and the approach to the game itself. And I think I can compare what's better or who's better in that context. See, I'm just, again, my opinion. To Anthony's question, it's all about Bo Nix. And do you think he gets drafted round 1 or Michael Penix? Did I miss a thing from Anthony? If I miss a comment from you, Anthony, I apologize as I try to get caught up here. To Anthony's question, it's all about Bo Nix. And I do think he gets drafted in round 1. I do too. I think Bo Nix doesn't get past Denver. But I don't think I think Mike McCarthy might be the best quarterback in his draft. Mike McCarthy, good grief. JJ McCarthy might be the best quarterback in his draft. Or Michael Penix, who I've heard some love on. Recently, listen, Michael Penix's stock has changed a lot. There are people that have him as high as 13. Anthony's question was about the over-unders, right? So you're right. It probably does depend on. I think I have Knicks going in the first round, which gives you 5, so it'd be over. And Michael Penix, there's a lot of mystery in this draft. I think it's going to be a fun draft night because usually, you've got a pretty good idea. I mean, there's still a little bit of doubt about the Caleb Williams thing in people's minds and whether the Bears will go there, maybe trade out of it. If Caleb Williams is saying he won't go and they try to pull a, Eli Manning thing on him, who knows? Adonez, listen, he's a great receiver. I do not think he's better than Marvin Harrison Jr. Playing a different conference with different type defenses, different approach to offense. Marvin Harrison, go back and watch the Georgia Ohio State semifinal 2 years ago and watch that game until Marvin Harrison Jr. got hurt. And that's all you need to know about the impact Marvin Harrison Jr. has on a game. And then that's not taking anything away from Adunez. He'll probably be a first round. a first top 10 pick. But I think Harrison is just a generational type player. Okay, thank you. Keon Coleman is a guy I was thinking about with Florida State. Dewey left and played 1 year with Baltimore, killed you, I'm sure. Dewey's a great player. New book coming out. I read Eric Sherman, another guy I'd like to get on the show. He's a prolific baseball writer. Has got a new autobiography or biography of Dwight Evans coming out. Very, very underrated player, by the way. When you consider his offensive numbers and the way he could play defense, you know, there's a guy who probably should be looking at Hall of Fame, more Hall of Fame consideration. I mean, if Harold Baines is in the Hall of Fame, again, I realize my argument, sometimes I get it mixed up in my own head. I say it's become the Hall of Very Good. And then I say, well, Dewey belongs in if Harold Baines belongs in, if Fred McGriff belongs in, if Gil Hodges belongs in. So if I say that, I'm continuing to water down the Hall of Fame. Maybe these guys have to be out. But I think Dewey is a legitimate Hall of Fame contender. Just saying. Drew with the top hitter so far, Ryan McMahon from Colorado, one of the few bright spots out there. He continues to sit on my bench in a couple of fantasy leagues. Stephen Kwan, Tarang, who's been a surprise at Milwaukee, also stealing a bunch of bases. Steer, who I like a lot. I think he's on every one of my fantasy teams. And certainly O'Hop, I don't think we would consider we would have seen him in this picture. I think now we're getting to the Jim's comments, so we'll get below those. Let's get down to where this is all gone. We had a lot of stuff for Jim. Jim had a great piece today, or great spot today, which is why I decided to go long here. I think we pick it up here. Rendon looks good on paper, but in 15.2, he's given up 16 hits, 7 base on balls. Thank you. Unless the lack of control changes, it will come home to roost soon. I don't disagree. I'm not a big Carlos Rendon fan, as Drew and the rest of you are probably well aware. Again, I did watch him pitch against the Marlins. He pitched really well for 5 innings, and things started to come unraveled in the 6th inning. And by the way, oh my God, I watched him come off the mound. These uniforms look terrible on these guys. Awful. Please, can we go back to something that looks like a Major League Baseball uniform and not freaking one of these? It looks like a T-shirt that I wear. It looks like it's just a bad look. What's going to happen in the heat of the summer when these guys? Never mind. Jim's new shirt for next week. What? I don't know what that was. These are back to thanks, Jim. We talked about the betting question on Caitlin Clark. I don't even know. I don't remember how many games they play. But if you're going to hold me to pick something right this second, Scott, I'm going to say over. Steve Yeager. Still got catchers coming out here. Great defensive catcher. He had some pop in his bat. Again, I can't even put him in the Fisk and Munson bucket. But defensively, probably a better defensive catcher than both of them in my mind. And by the way, the guy who the neck guard was put into place for, because if you remember, he was almost killed. I believe he was on the on-deck circle, if I'm not mistaken. Or was he catching? I can't remember. Anyway, there was a broken back that splintered, and he got it right in the neck. And I think that's when they invented the neck guard for the catchers. Now they look like goalies out there. Top 5 bullpen ERAs. Boston, which has kept them alive. They've started to come back to earth. New York, I told you the New York bullpen I thought was a question mark. At the back end, I still worry about the back end of this bullpen. I like the middle part of it. Loaizaga being out for 60 days, and in my mind, probably longer. It's very possible he's going to miss the season. I I think that will hurt this bullpen as well. Listen, I'm a big Yankee fan, but I'm a realist. This team is what? Are they 13-2? What are they? Hold on. 12-3, sorry. Just a tremendous start for the Yankees. But again, there's still some question marks that over the long haul. And that's why baseball is great at 162 games, Kenny, because it's a marathon. And this 12-3 start, while it's wonderful, could disappear in a heartbeat. And this team's got some issues. Now, I root for my team no matter what. DJ should be back soon. It's gonna be. I think DJ's got a platoon with Cabrera at third base, by the way, at best. Cabrera hit another home run yesterday. Playing great. Not playing great defense, but I know a couple guys, and it happened with Mac the other day, Friday, pumping up Stanton. As soon as Stanton hits, a couple home runs, a couple days in a row, we start saying, Stanton's back. Stanton's back. Stanton's not back. He's going to hit 30 home runs and hit 220 and strike out 160 times and leave tons of guys on base. Well, Penix is a winner for sure. As I said, and this might be a response to my comment about nobody wins at Indiana. Well, during the COVID year, which I know was a bit of an aberration, they won like 10 games and went to a bowl game, a good bowl game. I think the three guys that left the Pats to give the Pats a comp pick were able to draft Brady. That's possible. I don't remember that specifically. I thought that was their own pick at 199 that year, but again, listen, if I was gonna pick a quarterback at 3, I might take McCarthy, because I think McCarthy. People, you just look at the stats. You talk about winning games, right? You talk about Penix being a winner. What about J.J. McCarthy? How many games did he lose in college? Less than Penix, and he beat Penix. We're Penix's team in the ultimate game. His numbers will never match up because they didn't play the same type of game. But McCarthy showed in the playoffs, the semifinals and final, what kind of quarterback he is in a big spot. He ran for big first downs. He threw for big first downs. I'm not taking him at 3. I don't want him because, again, to me, it's too big a risk. But his draft stock has really improved. By the way, speaking of Pats, Paul, I don't know if you heard earlier. I think you might have been. But on the May 10th, my guest on Keith Engle, 101 with Keith Engle, 9 a.m. Eastern, will be Brian Holloway, former tremendous offensive lineman for the Patriots in the 80s. Great guy. Giants trade Jones to the Cowboys for Dak. Well, the Cowboys aren't making that trade. That's too funny. Listen, I've been a big Daniel Jones booster for quite some time, and the injuries are the thing that really concern me. I know he hasn't had great teams to play around, and I have said Daniel Jones has been vilified mostly because of where he was picked. If he was picked in the second round, probably where he should have been picked, this wouldn't have been his growth until last year. He'd been getting better every year until last year. Led the Giants to their first playoff appearance and win in quite some time. But the injuries are becoming a problem. And it's not his fault they moved up to 6 to pick him. But I don't think, maybe he could go into that Giant team or that Cowboy win and win a Super Bowl. It's possible. But the Cowboys aren't making that trade. If they're not going to pay Dak, they're not going to pay Jones $40 million. 50-50 chance. Yeah, that's what I say. At best. And if we're talking about quarterbacks, I think it's at best. I mean, if you're talking about number 1 picks overall, Paul, 50-50, all of them make it. And the quarterbacks, I think, if you single out the quarterbacks, I think it might be less. To do some research at some point. Read the book Life at the Bottom to grasp the dilemmas of polygamy, especially on the cool at taxpayers' expense. Yeah, it's probably a great book. I'm really not. I'm not interested in reading a book about polygamy in whichever side we're on for it. But listen, there are some people. I know some Mormons that have nothing to do with that. They obviously live by a different creed than I do. Not creed, but yes, creed. But they live their lives differently than I would or other people would. But I'm not going to judge people on what they decide to do. Polygamy is not legal in Utah or anywhere else. And it's not a common practice even among Mormons. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. And I'm sure the book is very good, but I just don't have that much interest in the topic, to be honest with you. 7 innings equals quality start. I think it's still 6, Paul. Drew's probably got an answer in here somewhere, but I'll look real quick. We're going long today, coming up on 2.5 hours. My wife probably wonders what the hell's going on down here. Let's check this out here. MLB, maybe you looked it up already. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they changed the definition, which would mean nobody's getting a quality start. Quality start glossary. Let's see if that helps me. What's a quality start? Here it is right here. A quality start, Major League Baseball. What is a quality start? Come on, get down here. Consists of 6 innings, 18 outs with 3 or fewer earned runs. Generally, that's a substantial amount of innings. That's all you need to know about baseball as it's played today. That is a substantial amount of innings and an overall low quality of runs allowed. So a guy who gives up 3 runs in 6 innings, right? I can't remember how to figure out ERA. What's his ERA? If he does that every start, what's his ERA? I don't remember how to do this. 3 times. Hold on. No. 3 times 6, right? Forget how to do this. 3. Used to do it all the time. 3 times 6 divided by 9. That's an ERA of 4. I guess that's not horrible if I did it right. But it is 6 innings. 6 innings, 3 or less runs. Those were team ERAs, bullpen ERAs. Minnesota, Cleveland, Detroit, New York, and Oakland. And Minnesota is one of those teams that's struggling. In some of the Minnesota Twin groups, I just joined a bunch of new ones because I wanted to be able to share the Marty Cordova interview with them. There's a lot of Twins fans pissed off with their 6 and 7 start. They've won 2 in a row now, but they're calling for Baldelli to get fired. Tough, man. We had to retire him. We're very proud of Keith Engle. I'm not sure why, Scott, but thank you for that. I wish my wife would come and visit me more. Paul Pedro, I think, could be the best Red Sox I've had since 1980. Let's take a look at Paul Pedro. I know that's not it. Oh, I'm so bad, right? It's not Pedro. I misread the question. I thought there was a Paul Pedro. Who are we talking about? Pedro. Maybe we're talking about Pedro Martinez. I'm not sure where we're at there. I did make a comment about, again, comparing eras, I guess, and the grief that Grady Little got for pulling out his best starter, maybe the best starter in the American League, or one of them, in the 7th inning of a close game in Game 7, leaving him in the game, to pitch. I don't remember who he pitched to. Might have been Hideki Matsui. But that's what that guy's getting paid for, or what they used to get paid for. Now, we get him out of there. Paul, the best pitcher I saw was Sandy Koufax. I didn't get a chance to see Koufax or Marichal. Kenny's a couple years older than I am, so he got a chance to see Koufax. So Koufax was great up until he retired. Really a short span. By the way, Sandy Koufax in the Hall of Fame, we talk about, and he was dominant. But early in his career, he was not. It wasn't until 64, I want to say, through 67, maybe 63 through 67, that Koufax dominated, if my memory serves me right. But we don't look at, other guys with short, dominant stretches as Hall of Fame worthy. It's more compilers that we look at. Don Mattingly, talking about Thurman Munson, Don Mattingly's more deserving of being in the Hall of Fame than Thurman. And again, I love Thurman. Sandy Koufax got to be in the Hall of Fame. Very few pitchers have had 5 years like he had. 5 or 6 years. I think it's 5. Gibson was another one. I saw a bit of Gibson at his peak, but he was starting to go below his peak. I can't believe you were able to see Koufax picks. Danny, how old are you? You're younger than me. Because, maybe you have better memory than me, because I don't remember stuff when I was 7. I really don't. 9, 10, I start to remember stuff. Koufax was amazing, though. Most of y'all already know childhood first game in H-Town, met and watched Nolan pitch. CA, big Texas sports fan. Listen, I'm a huge Nolan Ryan fan. I think Nolan Ryan, there are people that tell you that Nolan Ryan is overrated. I will tell you that Nolan Ryan is underrated as one of the great pitchers of all time. If that's possible, and I say he's underrated because of all the people that say he's overrated, I guess is my point. You guys are doing a great job today. I prefer the brown grass, pebble-laden fields and players of the 70s. This week in baseball. It didn't feel like, and I was young, and time is a relative thing. Didn't it feel like this week in baseball started long before? It didn't start until 76. It ran for a while. It ran after Mel Allen. I'm trying to think of the guy that replaced Mel Allen. His name is right there. Tip of my tongue. Scott, Paul Dwight Evans, one of his all-time favorite Red Sox. One of the great plays, and we haven't talked a lot, but I've talked a lot on different shows about Game 6 of the Reds and Red Sox in 1975. One of the greatest plays I ever saw. That game, Joe Morgan hit a shot. I think it was in extra innings. I'll say it was in inning 11, maybe. And Scott or Paul, you can straighten me out. But Evans makes one of the great plays in defensively. Joe Morgan hits a bullet towards the bullpen in right field, and Dwight Evans just goes on a dead sprint towards where he thinks the ball's going to be, and he makes a great catch. And then they double off the runner off first base to keep that game alive. And we all know what happened with Fisk in the 12th. Still, by the way, not a Red Sox fan. Not a Red Sox fan. The 2 best games I have ever seen. Game 6 of the 1975 World Series and Game 163 in 1978. Well, but if we put down that rabbit hole, we'd end up at the Olympics and privatization of sports. I don't know where that came from. Which rabbit hole? Paul agrees about the 1,000%. Paul might have gone to Perth. No, people say 1,000%. Like, well, I guess it could be a thing. That shows you I went to Perth. The uniforms are awful. They're hanging off, guys. It's not a good look, man. I don't know. Oh my God. Can't the commissioner step in and say, we can't do this anymore? It's a horrible look on most of these guys. I just don't like it, man. You think there's a hole-in-one today? Has there been one that? There's got to have been one in the tournament, right? And that's one of the things you can get on. I don't know what do you get for a hole-in-one? What's on DraftKings or whatever app you use? I might put a small bet on a hole-in-one today. I want to say yes. I got to believe these greens are faster than hell after all the wind they had Friday, and now they're drying out a bit. It was their own pick, wasn't a comp pick. I didn't think it was for Brady. Got to run. Paul, thanks for having you with us. I'm glad you have fun, and I'm glad you'll be back. Please go to if you're still here, go to TGI Sports Talk and like and follow the page, please, and invite your friends. Great to have you with us, Paul. Love your contribution today. Started early, Kenny. Started innings pitched average 5.1. I mean, it to me, it's like comical. What was the average? I just have to do this. I'm sorry. I know you guys get mad sometimes when I compare eras. Average starting pitches. I don't know if I'm going to get what I want per game in 1974. Let's just put it here. I'm probably not going to get this. How many pitches on the average? Yeah, I don't know when this was. Yeah, I can't seem to get the average. I don't know. You can probably find it, Drew, if you want to do a comparison for us. I mean, but look at some of the innings pitched here. Oh, is there an average here? Innings. Average. The Red Sox averaged 7.2 innings per pitch. The league was 6.6. That's the average. I don't know if that's quite right. Innings pitched per game started. Yeah. 7.2. 7.2 the Red Sox were. The lowest was 6.3. Here the average is 5.1. That may not seem like a lot, but that's huge. Look at the complete games. 650 complete games. That's just the American League. That's just the American League. Now, they had a DH, so maybe that's not fair. Oh, let me look at the National League. It's even better. A league without a DH. 6.5. Complete games, 1,050. Oh, that's all of baseball. I'm sorry. So when I include all of baseball, 6.5, 1,089 complete games. You will see 1,089 complete games from now until the end of time. Yikes. Who do I have winning the Boston Marathon tomorrow? Here's what I would do. Bet on anybody not named Keith Engle. And find a Nigerian or Kenyan. Find a Kenyan to bet on. Bet all the Kenyans. I mean, that's probably the best way to go. I don't know. It's not 7. If you're still talking about quality, I just looked it up. It's 6. Oh, thank you. Okay, there you go. Stand corrected, mate. No worries. Believe me, I'm wrong about a lot of stuff, Paul. Quality starts percentage. Kansas City, 660. You know what I'd like to know, though? And these are fine. Good numbers. I guess it tells me about their staff. But to me, isn't there a big difference in giving up, no runs in a quality start or 1 run to 3? We're going from an ERA of, 2 to ERA of 4. That's a pretty big range for the quality of a start. Again, we're never going to get off the show. We're approaching 3 hours. That's okay, but just part of humanity's fundamental dilemma, which has gotten us where we are today. Well, I don't disagree with that, but I mean, unfortunately, that stuff that you're talking about goes back a lot further than today. Pedro pitched to Jorge. Okay, it was Posada was up next. Okay, and Scott, I don't know if you commented on this. Paul, the big Red Sox fan, and me, the Red Sox hater, agree that Grady Little made the right decision. Koufax, greatness. They're 61. I knew he was up a long time. All right, so he had a longer stretch than I thought. I had him in 63, and I was doing it totally off the top of my head. Ryan was with Koufax. They would set you on your ass and then throw it down the middle past you. Yeah, and now if I pitch inside, I'm going to get a warning for both benches, or guys are going to take exception to it. Another. Baseball players are candy asses. We haven't even gotten into this. I was going to get into Angel Hernandez. We haven't. Does anybody watch Angel Hernandez this year? I don't know how Angel Hernandez could get worse, but Angel Hernandez is the worst umpire in the history of Major League Baseball. And I read an article about him this year, and he's like highly respected and revered among his peers. And he's absolutely atrocious. Watch the game he umpired the other night, and then it's escaping me. Let me see if it happens to be here. If it's still up here anywhere, it's probably not where I can grab it. No. It just, God awful. And this isn't new. He's been doing this stuff for years. He did it in the Yankee game last Sunday, I think it was. He let a guy step off the rubber and then to jump on quickly and quick pitch Glaber. And then he calls a ball a strike that wasn't a strike. And the other night, he had like 28 missed strikes both ways. He is just the worst thing that ever hit umpiring. One of the best catches in Red Sox history, Dwight Evans' catch. Never talked about it in that game. I don't know about ever. It's a great book, Scott, that I'm sure you've read. It's called Game 6. And I don't know who wrote it, but it's all about that game, basically. And it goes inning by inning, and then there's stories surrounding the players that were integral to that inning. And it's really an interesting book. And if you hadn't read it, you should. It's one of the best books I've read, baseball books I've ever read. I wasn't. Game 2, 1975 World Series. Isn't that the game where? No, I guess that was. But they were in Boston in early, right? Early and late. Then in Cincinnati in the middle of that series. That's not the game where Fisk threw the ball in the center field with the interference on Ed Armbrister. Game 2. I'm trying to remember. I think it was. I feel like it was. I don't know who pitched that game now. See, it's funny. I don't remember that game. And that's the thing with, Game 7 was a good game in that series, but you forget about all of it because of Game 6. Lots of liberal sports media hated Nolan. Most boys envy men until they die. With Nolan being a Texas boy, I know why CA sticks up for him. And I don't know if this was a liberal sports media thing or not. But, Nolan was a man's man, and he didn't take any crap. And one of the best clips ever will be a freaking 40-plus-year-old Nolan Ryan beating Robin Ventura, who I had a lot of respect for. Why he thought it was a good idea to go to the mound that night, I have no idea. 24-year-old maybe. Robin Ventura got the snot knocked out of him by Nolan Ryan. Plus 110 for a hole-in-one? That's not good odds for me. Whatever happened to cotton uniforms? Well, better than a flannel. Cotton was okay. The flannel uniforms made guys look sloppy, too. I see getting away from flannel to double knit. I don't know what this stuff is they're wearing now. It looks like that, I got T-shirts made out of sports wick or dry wick, whatever they call the thing. But it looks like that type of material, but it doesn't stay dry. It gets soaked and it's hanging off of guys. Even when it's dry, it doesn't look good on them. They sweat. You can see their ass, for crying out loud. Oh God. JB, you're talking. I love Stratomatic. I play it online. The 365 game. I'm in the middle of the mystery tournament now. I won the 60s league, doing horrible in the 70s and 80s, but I'm leading. I got a very good chance of winning my league in the 90s and 2000s, which might get me on the cusp of the final. I don't know if you know anything about that, but that's where I am. And I know Drew's a big Stratomatic fan as well. He and I talk about getting together and playing. And I know I have been probably the hugest roadblock to that happening. I do want to do it because I miss the old school with the cards and whatnot. And Drew's got a ton of cards and different seasons. And I certainly want to do some of that. So I love Stratomatic baseball, JB. I'm so glad you brought that up. The 16th is the best theater in golf history at the Masters on Sunday. I don't disagree even a little bit, Scott. The theater, and I got a feeling this is going to be a great finish. As I said earlier, what'd I say? 8 golfers are within 5 shots of the lead. Anything can happen today. You got 2 guys that have in their first Masters that have a chance here. You got some other guys who've only played a couple of Masters, and you've got Scotty Scheffler going for 2 out of 3. You've got Chambeau trying to win his first and rebound. He's his own worst enemy, but he's playing. He looks like he's playing better golf these days than he has for a while. Remember when he came back from COVID? It had to be steroids, man. He looked like the Incredible Hulk. And I think his approach, and I think he's matured a bit. I didn't like his standoffish attitude before. I think he's done a great job. Okay, Paul. Paul's still here and leaving. We're addictive. It's hard to get away. It's like a car crash. It's hard to, you want to drive away, but you can't. Look at the color of the greens, almost brown and very shiny. Plus, they're very firm. I think they've gotten firm for sure, Kenny, because we've had no rain, and they had a lot of wind and now sun, and we know what's going to happen. I didn't notice them being, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the TV. Did you see there's I watched a thing, I guess it was on YouTube. There was a guy who actually was funny. He hit his face, so I don't know. I guess the Masters are like the Skull and Bones group. But this guy hit his face. He was talking about some of the secrets to the Masters golf course. And I read, Kenny, that they've got this whole underground air system that they use to dry out fairways and dry out greens and do certain things to keep things green and whatever. I didn't notice the greens, and I probably haven't looked close enough. Kenny, I've watched a lot of it on my computer because my wife was watching other things, so I've had a lot on my computer. Some I've watched down here in my office, but so I think they are very, very firm, and it's going to be. I've seen guys put the ball. I saw a guy yesterday put the ball right off the green. And And I don't think that's an unusual thing. So it's an interesting. I love this golf course. Even if the networks are piping in fake bird sounds. Yay. Cut at maybe 0.078. What is that? Oh, you're talking about the greens, the way they're cut? They are like, remember, who was it? Not Gary. Ah, crap. Who's the number one announcer for McCord? Gary McCord. He got the Masters made CBS drop him from Masters coverage because he said the greens looked like they've been done with bikini wax, I believe, if I remember right. Oh, sorry about that. I get a little ahead of myself. Hey, these two words, complete game, what do those mean? Yeah, exactly. All right, Drew, have a great day. Thanks for sticking around. 3 hours. That's a lot of Keith. More baseball to come for sure. We're going to move on here soon. Grady Little had a bet on the Yankees, and he used Pete Rose's bookie, LOL. There's no way I take my pitcher out in a tight situation. Today you do. Because that's not his job. Sooners are in trouble to get him out, unless he's your ace. And even in the 7th inning, they probably pulled Derek Cole in that situation. But you pay these guys to get out of those situations. I have umpires union. I have the umpires union. You have the umpires union? Is the best union out there. It is if they're keeping frickin' Angel Hernandez employed. No, they didn't. Last year, for some reason, and there was a lot of speculation that he'd been suspended or something. He didn't umpire a game last year till like mid-season or maybe even a little later. But he's been there all this year, and he's very high profile because once a week we got Angel Hernandez video. He's awful. The guy isn't even close to being good. And why these umpires, again, and I'm not even talking about the union necessarily, or maybe because they just stick up for each other, but they all speak very highly of this guy. Yeah, it is a great, great book. Game 6. You don't need to be a Red Sox fan, because I am the furthest thing from a Red Sox fan. But if you're a baseball fan, what a great read. In fact, I've reread it a couple of times now, and it's just a great book. Game 2, 75 World Series, Bill Lee against Jack Bellingham. Bill Lee went 8 innings. I do remember the game a bit. It's funny, though. You get a classic game like Game 6, and you kind of forget about others. And I told you, two of my favorite games are Game 6 in this series, Game 163 and 1978, which I'm sure is not one of your favorites, Scott or Paul. I know, Paul, you're gone. But right up there, number 3. And it's not because the game was so great, but Game 2 of the 1978 World Series is probably in my top 3 because Greg Nettles just turns that series around. The Yankees trailed 2-0. They're back in Yankee Stadium. Ron Guidry's getting rocked. Guys on base every inning. He's walking guys. They're hitting bullets. Greg Nettles saves about 5 runs in that game, early in that game. And Guidry gutted out a complete game, I want to say. But Greg Nettles just probably saved the World Series for the Yankees in 1978. And it's a forgotten game amongst a lot of people. Said JV, fire that Constanza. He probably kept coming to work. Sub air, yeah. I don't know why it's got to be such a secret. This guy seriously, Kenny was in a silhouette because he wouldn't show his face. We're in that place like the Skull and Bones. You find yourself in Jersey, get in touch with me. Open invite to Saturday morning Strat Club, and then you can buy me lunch. So you got a Saturday morning Strat Club. How can we play virtually? I'd love to get involved. That'd be awesome. Maybe Drew would want to get involved. We could do it virtually. The fairways are rye grass. We're reaching the end of the show here, guys, by the way. JB collects autographs. Got a beautiful one from Nolan Ryan, one of my faves. I love Nolan Ryan, man. When does Keith Engle 24-Hour Network start? It seems to be starting today. We went almost an hour long because you guys are that important to me. And one of the reasons, I'll wrap it up. I'm going to wrap it up here. One of the reasons that, I love having Jim on, and I want Jim on, and he'll be on as much as he can be on during the Stanley Cups. But we get wrapped up in hockey, and I lose a half an hour of this. I love this interaction with you guys. So we went for you 20. For you viewers, we just went from we just quadrupled our viewers in the last 20 minutes. I can't do this show from 11 to 11:30. I can now. I could go longer. I could go shorter. So it's up to me. But during football season, I got to be out of here by 11. I can't go to 11:30. So you guys who are latecomers, please tune in at 8:30. Put it on your phone. Just walk around the house. Contribute. Comment. I love these guys. Will tell you there's no comment I will not put it. Well, Kenny, I didn't want you to disparage hockey for Jim Biringer, but I know everything. It's like the skull and bones, right? It's past his bedtime. Say goodnight, everybody. I love Scott Colby. Great guy. And Scott, we'll get you out to talk to you sports sometime too, I promise. So anyway, guys, you've been tremendous today. I'll replay this show. It's not going to be able to replay tonight at midnight. We'll have to replay something else because it's too long on Roku, but we'll play something else. And we'll replay this one tomorrow. It's been a great show. Thanks to Jim Biringer for coming on. Thank you for your comments, guys. I'll be on Wednesday with the College Sports Huddle. We'll talk more as the weeks go on about a little sabbatical there for a few weeks, see how things go attendance-wise. And then Friday, we'll have no one-on-one with Keith Engle, but every week after that, new interview coming up in the weeks to come, starting April 26th. Tim Hurley, Buddy Biancalana, Brian Holloway, Randy Lurch, and many, many more to come. Friday, we're back with the regular MLB update. And then, of course, this show, the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. You guys have a great day, guys. It's been a beautiful day. Have a great one, guys. Bye-bye.